Scattered across our planet, hidden in plain sight or tucked away in remote corners, lie ancient stones that whisper secrets no one can fully decipher. Some are massive, towering monoliths that seem to defy gravity, while others are intricately carved with symbols that no modern scholar can translate. But the most fascinating ones, the stones that shouldn't exist, whose origins are so baffling, so utterly lost to time, that even the sharpest minds can only guess at their purpose. Who placed them there, how were they moved, and why do they seem to hold clues to a history we've yet to uncover? This isn't just a story about rocks. It's a journey into the heart of humanity's greatest unsolved puzzles. A trail of breadcrumbs left behind by civilizations long gone, teasing us with questions that refuse to stay buried. Today, we're diving into 50 of these enigmatic stones, each one a silent guardian of mysteries that stretch back thousands of years. From the eerie precision of their construction to the uncanny locations where they're found, these stones don't just challenge what we know about ancient technology, they make us wonder if we've ever truly understood our past. Imagine standing before a monument so old that even the legends about it have been forgotten. The air hums with the weight of centuries, and the stone itself seems to pulse with untold stories. That's the feeling these ancient relics evoke, not just curiosity, but something deeper, almost primal. Because if these stones could talk, they might rewrite history as we know it. So let's begin the search for answers, knowing full well that the farther we go, the more questions we'll uncover. Are you ready to step into the unknown? Buried deep inside a chunk of ancient limestone in Texas, a discovery was made that still stumps scientists to this day. The London hammer. Found in the 1930s, this ordinary-looking tool was encased in rock dated to over 100 million years old, a time when dinosaurs roamed the earth and humans didn't exist. So how does a clearly man-made hammer end up sealed inside prehistoric stone? The hammer itself is constructed from an iron alloy that's unusually pure, with a wooden handle that's partially fossilized. But here's where things get truly strange. Metallurgical analysis suggests the metal was forged in a way that shouldn't have been possible in any known ancient civilization. Some researchers even claim the composition resembles advanced industrial techniques from the 19th century. So if it's not ancient or modern, then where did it come from? Outlandish theories have swirled around this artifact for decades. Could it be evidence of time travelers accidentally leaving tools behind in the distant past? Or perhaps remnants of an advanced, lost civilization that mastered metallurgy long before recorded history? The more extreme suggest it was dropped by extraterrestrial visitors. Mainstream science, of course, remains skeptical, pointing to natural geological processes that might explain how the hammer became embedded. Yet no one has definitively solved the puzzle. What makes the London hammer so compelling isn't just its mysterious origin, it's the uncomfortable questions it forces us to ask. If this artifact truly is out of place in time, what else might we have gotten wrong about history? Every time scientists dismiss it as a fluke, another piece of the puzzle resists easy explanation. And that's what keeps drawing us back, the possibility that some discoveries, no matter how small, have the power to shake the foundations of what we think we know. High in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, the ruins of Baalbek stand as one of archaeology's greatest enigmas, not just for the towering Roman temples built atop them, but for the three monstrous stone blocks buried beneath. Known as the trilithon, these limestone behemoths each weigh over 800 tons, with one stretching 64 feet long, the largest cut stone in human history. To put that in perspective, that's heavier than 3 Boeing 747 jets combined. And here's what defies logic. These stones were quarried nearly a mile away, then somehow hauled uphill and fitted together with joints so precise you can't slip a razor blade between them. The Romans credited these foundations to a race of giants, but modern engineers are just as baffled. Even with today's cranes and hydraulics, moving a single trilithon block would require a feat of physics that pushes the limits of possibility. Some theorists point to advanced ancient technologies, perhaps sound levitation or anti-gravity devices hinted at in obscure texts. Others suggest these stones predate recorded history entirely, remnants of a forgotten civilization with knowledge we've since lost. Mainstream archaeology insists the Romans built Baalbek, yet their own records admit they merely repurposed a platform of the gods. The precision of the megalith's placement, the absence of tool marks, and the sheer scale of the operation raise uncomfortable questions. How could Bronze Age laborers without wheels or pulleys achieve what our modern machinery struggles to replicate? And why does the site's astronomical alignment match constellations from 12,000 years ago, a time when human societies supposedly lacked such sophistication? Baalbek doesn't just challenge our timeline of human achievement, it taunts us. Every theory, from the plausible to the fantastical, leaves gaps wide enough to drive a truck through. Whether it's evidence of lost high-tech cultures or simply a testament to forgotten human ingenuity, one thing's certain: these stones were meant to last, carrying their secrets into an age that still can't fully comprehend them. In the quiet farmland of Elbert County, Georgia, a massive granite monument once stood like a modern-day Stonehenge, except instead of ancient riddles, its message was carved in 8 different languages with chilling precision. The Georgia Guidestones, erected in 1980 with no named sponsor, presented 10 commandments for a supposed age of reason. But who authored these stark instructions for humanity? And why were they so obsessed with maintaining the world's population at 500 million, a fraction of what it is today? The stones themselves were a marvel of engineering, each slab weighing over 20 tons and aligned astronomically to track the sun's movements, the most unsettling part. The top capstone featured a cryptic slot that channeled sunlight to mark noon, with a smaller hole that aligned with the North Star. Whoever designed this wasn't just leaving a message, they were building a functional celestial clock. But the real mystery lies in the identity of R.C. Christian, the pseudonym used by the man who commissioned the monument. He paid in cash, demanded absolute secrecy, and vanished without a trace after the stones were installed. Speculation runs wild. Some believe the Guidestones were a blueprint for post-apocalyptic survival, while others see them as elitist population control propaganda. Conspiracy theorists point to ties with secret societies, noting the monument's resemblance to esoteric Rosicrucian symbolism. Even its destruction in 2022 by unknown vandals, later officially demolished, only deepened the intrigue. Was it an act of vigilantism against perceived dark agendas, or an attempt to erase clues hidden in plain sight? What makes the Guidestones uniquely disturbing isn't just their anonymity, it's the cold, mathematical logic of their directives. Guide reproduction wisely, balance personal rights with social duties, phrased like sterile equations rather than human ideals. Unlike ancient stones whispering lost histories, this was a manifesto deliberately planted in our era, taunting us with questions about authority and the future. Whether a warning, a hoax, or something else entirely, its echoes linger, because the real puzzle isn't who built it, but whether we were meant to follow its blueprint. Deep in the jungles of Costa Rica, scattered across riverbeds and hidden beneath dense foliage, lie hundreds of perfectly spherical stones, some as small as a basketball, others towering over 8 feet tall and weighing 16 tons. The stone spheres of Costa Rica, or Las Bolas, as locals call them, are so unnaturally precise that modern engineers struggle to explain how ancient artisans carved them with such flawless symmetry. Unearthed in the 1930s by banana plantation workers, these spheres weren't just randomly placed. They appeared in deliberate clusters, often arranged in geometric patterns or aligned with celestial events, hinting at a purpose far more sophisticated than decorative art. What makes these spheres so baffling isn't just their shape, but the material itself. carved from granodiorite, an incredibly hard volcanic rock. Each sphere would have required painstaking labor using primitive tools. Yet there's no evidence of chisels or abrasives nearby, no workshops, no half-finished attempts, just these eerie, polished orbs as if they'd been dropped from the sky. Indigenous legends speak of a god who hurled them from the heavens, while others claim they're relics from Atlantis. But archaeologists have a more grounded, though no less mysterious theory. These spheres might have been a giant celestial map. Some clusters mirror constellations visible in Costa Rica thousands of years ago, while others align with solstices and equinoxes, suggesting they functioned as an astronomical calendar. Even more intriguing, similar spheres have been found in Bosnia and Mexico, raising the possibility of a shared, forgotten knowledge across continents. Yet without any written records or carvings on the stones themselves, their true purpose remains locked in silence. Theories veer from the practical to the fantastical. Could they have been territorial markers, symbols of power, or even conduits for some lost energy technology? Modern scans reveal density inconsistencies inside some spheres, fueling speculation they contain hidden chambers or metallic cores. But here's the twist: many were moved or looted before proper studies could be done, their original arrangements disrupted forever. What lingers isn't just curiosity about how they were made, but why. These spheres don't fit neatly into any known culture's practices. They're outliers, artifacts that defy classification, whispering of a time when someone or something saw the world with a precision we're only beginning to decode. And that's the real mystery, not the stones themselves, but the hands that shaped them, and the minds that saw the universe in perfect, unchanging spheres. Along the windswept coast of Brittany in France, an eerie army of standing stones stretches for miles in precise, staggering rows, the Karnak stones. Numbering nearly 3,000 megaliths, this sprawling arrangement is one of the most baffling prehistoric sights on Earth. Unlike the clustered circles of Stonehenge, Karnak stones march across the landscape in eerie, militaristic formation, some towering over 20 feet high while others crouch low like teeth in the earth. But the most compelling question isn't just how they were placed here, it's why they form such deliberate patterns, and what ancient secrets they might encode. Archaeologists estimate these stones were erected around 4,500 years ago, long before written history in the region. The sheer scale of the site defies imagination. 3 main alignments, Menek, Kermario, and Kaleskan, each consisting of hundreds of granite monoliths positioned with unsettling symmetry. What's even more intriguing is their potential celestial connection. Some researchers argue the alignments mirror the movements of the moon and stars, suggesting Karnak might have been a gigantic astronomical observatory. Certain rows point directly to sunrise during solstices, while others align with lunar standstills, events that only occur every 18.6 years. Were these stones a prehistoric calendar, a ritual site, or something far more mysterious? Theories about their purpose range from the pragmatic to the paranormal. One hypothesis suggests they served as seismic detectors, with the stones vibrating to warn of earthquakes. Others propose they marked territorial boundaries or sacred pathways for ancient processions. Then there's the more speculative angle. Local folklore claims the stones are a petrified Roman legion cursed by the wizard Merlin. While that's pure legend, it underscores the deep enigma surrounding their origin. What's equally puzzling is the absence of any clear evidence pointing to their builders. No tools, no burials, no settlements. Just these silent sentinels standing guard over a secret we've yet to crack. Even modern technology struggles to explain how Neolithic people quarried, transported, and erected stones weighing up to 50 tons without wheels or metal tools. Some speculate they might have used a system of ropes, sledges, and earthen ramps, but no definitive proof has emerged. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of Karnak isn't the stones themselves, but the whispers of a lost knowledge they represent. Unlike Egypt's pyramids or Greece's temples, there's no grand civilization left to claim them, just echoes of a people who understood the stars well enough to map them in stone. Every alignment, every angle feels like a message we're on the verge of understanding, if only we could decipher the language. And that's what keeps drawing researchers back, the tantalizing possibility that buried beneath the soil or hidden in the geometry lies a key to a forgotten chapter of human history. Whether sacred site, cosmic calculator, or something beyond our current grasp, Karnak remains a riddle written in stone, waiting for the right mind to read it. Rising from the arid plains of southeastern Turkey, the towering T-shaped pillars of Gobekli Tepe have rewritten the history books, but not without leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. This sprawling complex, buried for millennia and only rediscovered in the 1990s, is staggering not just for its scale but for its age. Carbon dating places its construction at around 11,600 years old, making it at least 6,000 years older than Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids. And here's the twist: this monumental site was built by hunter-gatherers, a people who, according to conventional archaeology, shouldn't have had the tools, the time, or even the societal organization to create something so sophisticated. The pillars themselves are a masterclass in mystery. Carved from massive limestone blocks, some weighing over 16 tons, each one is adorned with intricate reliefs of animals, snakes, foxes, scorpions, and birds, all rendered with a precision that suggests more than just decorative intent. These aren't crude etchings, they're deliberate, almost ceremonial, hinting at a symbolic language we've yet to decipher. Even more perplexing is the layout. The pillars form circular enclosures, with two taller central monoliths facing each other like silent sentinels. The symmetry is deliberate, the engineering advanced, yet there's no evidence of nearby quarries or the tools needed to carve such hard stone. What truly shatters expectations is the timeline. Gobekli Tepe predates agriculture, the very foundation of settled civilization. For decades, historians believed that complex monuments could only arise after humans domesticated crops and animals, freeing up time and labor for grand projects. But this site turns that logic on its head. Whoever built Gobekli Tepe did it while still living as nomads without permanent settlements or the wheel. So why would hunter-gatherers invest so much effort into a structure that, at first glance, served no practical purpose? Some researchers argue the site was a temple, a sacred space for rituals that bound scattered groups together. The animal carvings might represent totems or deities, a spiritual lexicon lost to time. Others propose it was an astronomical observatory, with the pillars aligned to solstices or celestial events. Then there's the more radical theory that Gobekli Tepe was a response to a cataclysm like the Younger Dryas climate shift, built as a warning or a plea to the gods. But perhaps the most unsettling possibility is that this wasn't the beginning of something, but the end. The site was deliberately buried around 8000 BC, filled in with tons of earth as if to seal it away from the future. Was it abandoned in fear, or was the burial itself part of a ritual, a way to preserve knowledge for a later age? The answers might lie in the dozens of similar sites now being uncovered across the region, suggesting Gobekli Tepe wasn't an anomaly but part of a vast, forgotten network. What lingers isn't just the question of how these pillars were made, but what they say about human ingenuity. If hunter-gatherers could organize, design, and execute such a project, what else have we underestimated about our ancestors? Gobekli Tepe doesn't just challenge the timeline of civilization, it dares us to reconsider the very definition of progress. And with only a fraction of the site excavated, the stones still have secrets to spill. One thing's certain: the deeper we dig, the less we seem to know. Isolated in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, Easter Island's stone giants, the Moai, stand as silent witnesses to one of archaeology's most enduring puzzles. These colossal statues, some towering over 30 feet tall and weighing up to 80 tons, were carved from volcanic rock with astonishing precision, then transported miles across rugged terrain to their coastal perches. But here's what defies logic. The island's indigenous Rapa Nui people, with no wheels, no draft animals, and no metal tools, somehow moved these monoliths uphill and downhill, through forests and over uneven volcanic rock. How the answer might rewrite what we thought we knew about human ingenuity. The most haunting detail isn't just the statues themselves, it's their eyes. Originally, many moai had coral and obsidian pupils, giving them an eerie, lifelike gaze. Island legends say the statues walked into position, guided by the spiritual power of chiefs or gods. Modern experiments have tested this metaphor, showing how teams could rock the statues upright in a shuffling motion, using ropes and coordinated pulls. Yet even this theory leaves gaps. The island's terrain is littered with broken moai, as if the process failed disastrously at times. And then there's the mystery of the red stone topknots or pukao, some weighing 12 tons, balanced precariously atop the statues' heads. How were these lifted without cranes or pulleys? But the deeper enigma lies in the society behind the moai. Easter Island was once lush, home to a thriving culture that erected nearly 900 statues. Then something went terribly wrong. By the time European explorers arrived in the 1700s, the island was deforested, its society collapsed, and many moai lay toppled. Was it environmental ruin from moving the statues, a civil war over dwindling resources, or something darker? Recent studies suggest the Rapa Nui adapted ingeniously, using rock gardens to survive, but the shadow of their downfall lingers. What makes the moai unforgettable isn't just their scale, it's the warning they seem to whisper across centuries. A society with the skill to carve and transport these giants still couldn't avert catastrophe. Were the statues a plea for protection, a display of power, or a monument to hubris? The truth might lie in the island's undeciphered Rongorongo script etched on wooden tablets. Until we crack that code, the moai remain a testament to human ambition and its limits. Among the towering sarsen stones of Stonehenge, the smaller blue stones hold a secret just as compelling, one that stretches 200 miles across rugged terrain to the Preseli Hills of Wales. These dolerite and rhyolite pillars, some weighing up to 4 tons, didn't belong to the Salisbury Plains natural landscape. So why would Neolithic builders go to such extraordinary lengths to haul them across rivers, valleys, and mountains? The answer might rewrite our understanding of ancient Britain's spiritual geography. Geochemical fingerprinting has traced these blue stones to specific quarries in Wales, revealing something astonishing. They were extracted around 3,400 BC, centuries before Stonehenge's main phase. This means the stones weren't just casually collected, they were deliberately preserved, perhaps even revered, before their eventual journey. But how they got to Stonehenge is where the mystery deepens. The conventional theory suggests laborers dragged them on wooden sledges, leveraging rollers and ropes. Yet experiments show this method would have taken months with a high risk of breakage. Alternative ideas float more dramatic possibilities: glacial transport during the Ice Age, or even a mythic connection to the Stone of Destiny, a legendary artifact said to have been stolen from Ireland by the wizard Merlin himself. The real enigma isn't just the how, but the why. These blue stones possess unique acoustic properties when struck. They produce resonant metallic sounds, a trait that might have linked them to ancient rituals. Some archaeologists argue they were healing stones, brought to Stonehenge for their perceived powers. Others point to their alignment with solstice sunrises and lunar cycles, suggesting a ceremonial purpose tied to the land of their origin. What's most haunting is the cultural weight behind this endeavor. Transporting the blue stones wasn't a logistical feat, it was an act of devotion, a deliberate tether between two sacred landscapes. The Preseli Hills are dotted with Neolithic tombs and springs, hinting that the stones were more than building materials. They were living relics of a homeland or ancestors. Stonehenge's builders might have been migrants carrying a piece of their identity, or pilgrims enacting a prophecy written in rock. What lingers today isn't just the question of engineering, but the intangible pull these stones held over people. In an age without maps or wheels, someone envisioned a connection between distant lands and made it real. The bluestones don't just challenge our ideas of ancient capability. They whisper of a world where geography itself was sacred and stones could carry the soul of a place. Etched into the bone-dry plains of southern Peru, the Nazca lines stretch for miles, colossal figures of spiders, monkeys, and geometric shapes so vast they can only be fully appreciated from the air. But beneath these famous geoglyphs lies a lesser-known enigma, the stones themselves. Unlike carved monuments or stacked megaliths, the Nazca lines were created by removing the reddish-brown iron oxide-coated pebbles that blanket the desert, revealing the lighter-colored earth beneath. This simple yet ingenious technique raises a paradox. How did a culture without flight or advanced surveying tools design and execute such precise, sprawling artwork? The stones tell a story of meticulous planning. Each geoglyph was outlined with carefully placed rocks, acting as borders to guide the removal of the darker surface layer. These borders were no haphazard piles, they were deliberate, with stones often stacked 2 or 3 deep to create crisp, unbroken lines. Even more astonishing is the fact that these designs remain intact centuries later, thanks to the region's unique climate. With almost no rainfall and minimal wind erosion, the stones have held their positions like a frozen snapshot of ancient intent. But the real puzzle is the scale and precision. Some lines run perfectly straight for miles, while curves in animal figures maintain flawless proportions. Modern engineers struggle to replicate such accuracy without aerial visibility or GPS. One theory suggests the Nazca people used rudimentary grids, staking ropes to scale up small models. But even this would require an advanced understanding of geometry. Others propose they might have built observation platforms or hot air balloons, though no evidence survives. Then there's the chilling possibility that these designs weren't meant to be seen by humans at all. Purpose remains the biggest mystery. Were the lines ceremonial pathways for walking rituals, a celestial calendar aligned with solstices? Some researchers point to nearby water sources, arguing the glyphs mapped underground aquifers. More controversially, a few speculate they were signals or landing markers for extraterrestrial visitors, though mainstream scholars dismiss this as fantastical. The truth might lie in the Nazca's own worldview, where the earth and sky were deeply interconnected. What lingers isn't just the how, but the why. These stones weren't quarried or carved, they were curated, selectively moved to reveal a hidden canvas. In a landscape where every pebble was a brushstroke, the Nazca turned the desert itself into art or a message. Whether sacred map, astronomical tool, or something beyond our grasp, the lines endure as a testament to a culture that saw the world in patterns we're only beginning to trace. And perhaps that's the most haunting thought of all, that their full meaning was never meant for us to understand. Perched high above the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman stands as a monument to engineering that defies logic. Its walls, constructed from massive limestone blocks, some weighing over 120 tons, fit together with such precision that not even a sheet of paper can slip between them. The curves and angles of each stone interlock like a 3-dimensional puzzle, creating a seamless, earthquake-resistant structure that has endured for centuries. But here's the real mystery: how did the Inca, with no known metal tools or mortar, achieve this level of perfection? The stones themselves are a marvel of craftsmanship. Each one was individually shaped to match its neighbors, with edges beveled and surfaces smoothed to an almost glass-like finish. What's even more baffling is that many of these boulders were quarried miles away, then transported uphill to the site. Traditional explanations suggest the Inca used wooden rollers, ramps, and sheer manpower. but experiments with these methods struggle to replicate the exactitude seen at Sacsayhuaman. The precision is so exact that some theorists argue it could only be achieved with advanced tools, perhaps even lost technologies like laser-like cutting devices or sonic vibrations. But the debate doesn't end there. Mainstream archaeologists point to the Incas' mastery of stoneworking techniques passed down through generations. They may have used simple tools like bronze chisels, sand abrasives, and wooden pegs soaked in water to fracture rock along precise lines. Yet even this explanation leaves gaps. The irregular, almost organic shapes of the stones suggest a method beyond mere chiseling. Some researchers propose they might have softened the rock using plant acids, then molded it like clay. Then there's the question of purpose. Sacsayhuaman wasn't just a fortress. Its zigzagging walls mirror the teeth of a puma, a sacred animal in Inca cosmology. Some believe the site was a ceremonial center, its walls designed to channel energy or align with celestial events. Others speculate it was a repository of ancient knowledge, built atop even older ruins that predate the Inca entirely. Local legends speak of gods or giants who shaped the stones, adding another layer of mystique. What makes Sacsayhuaman so compelling isn't just the how, it's the why. These walls weren't built for mere defense. They were a statement, a fusion of art, science, and spirituality. Whether the product of human ingenuity or a forgotten technology, they challenge our assumptions about history's timeline. And as long as those perfect joints remain unbroken, the stones will keep their secrets, waiting for the day we might finally understand. Beneath the crystal-clear waters off Japan's Yonaguni Island lies a site that has divided scientists for decades. A sprawling, terraced structure of massive stone blocks, sharp angles, and unnaturally straight edges, all resting 60 feet below the ocean's surface. Known as the Yonaguni Monument, this submerged enigma stretches nearly 500 feet long and rises 80 feet tall. Its steps and platforms so geometrically precise that many refuse to believe it's just a quirk of nature. But if it's man-made, who built it and when, the answer might rewrite the history of Pacific civilizations. The moment you lay eyes on Yonaguni's formations, the debate becomes visceral. Flat surfaces meet at near-perfect 90-degree angles, while symmetrical terraces cascade like a sunken altar. Pillars and what appear to be carved pathways snake through the structure, even featuring two round holes that resemble mooring posts. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura, who has studied the site for over 30 years, argues these features are unmistakably artificial, pointing to tool marks and a staircase-like progression that defies natural erosion patterns. But skeptics like Robert Skock of Boston University insist Yonaguni is a classic example of sandstone fracturing along natural plains, shaped by tides and tectonic shifts over millennia. Diving deeper into the controversy only thickens the mystery. The monument's location coincides with a region once above sea level during the last ice age, roughly 10,000 years ago, a time when mainstream archaeology says advanced stone-working cultures shouldn't have existed in this part of the world. Yet nearby, similar underwater structures dot the coast, including what looks like a massive arch and a stadium-like platform. Even more intriguing are the turtle carvings, rock formations resembling stylized sea turtles, a motif found in later Okinawan mythology. Could these be coincidental or echoes of a lost coastal civilization? The stakes go beyond academic debate. If Yonaguni is artificial, it hints at a sophisticated pre-flood culture capable of large-scale stone construction, a narrative that challenges our understanding of human progress. Proponents of the Atlantis myth seize on it as evidence of a Pacific counterpart to that fabled kingdom. Meanwhile, mainstream science demands ironclad proof, tool marks, artifacts, or inscriptions, none of which have been definitively found. What lingers is the unsettling beauty of the unknown. Whether a natural masterpiece or a drowned relic of human ambition, Yonaguni forces us to confront the gaps in our history. The sea guards its secrets well, and until we uncover more, these silent stones will keep their truth just out of reach, waiting for the day we're ready to listen. High on the windswept Bolivian Altiplano, the ruins of Puma Punku present an enigma that makes even seasoned archaeologists pause. Scattered across the site like pieces of a celestial jigsaw puzzle are the infamous H-shaped stones, precision-cut blocks of andesite and granite, each weighing several tons and each featuring grooves, notches, and drill holes so exact they seem machine-made. But here's the catch. Puma Punku dates back over 1,000 years to a time when the Tiwanaku culture thrived, a people who, by conventional accounts, had no access to metal tools beyond simple copper. So how did they carve these stones with such flawless geometry that modern engineers struggle to replicate? Take a closer look at one of these H-blocks and the precision becomes almost unsettling. The edges are razor sharp, the corners perfectly square, and the surfaces polished to a smoothness that resists erosion even after centuries of exposure. Most baffling are the intricate channels and boreholes drilled into the stone, some as small as 6 millimeters in diameter, with depths that maintain consistent width throughout. Recreating these features today would require diamond-tipped tools or advanced ultrasonic drilling, yet there's no evidence the Tiwanaku possessed such technology. Even more perplexing, the stones interlock in ways that suggest modular construction, like a giant, ancient Lego set designed to withstand earthquakes. Theories attempting to explain Puma Punku range from the pragmatic to the provocative. Some researchers propose the use of abrasive sand and copper tools combined with painstaking labor to achieve these cuts. Others point to the discovery of mysterious metal clamps once thought to hold the stones together, though no one can confirm how they were forged or installed. Then there are the more speculative ideas, like lost ancient technologies involving high-frequency sound or even extraterrestrial intervention, fueled by local myths speaking of gods who built the site in a single night. What makes Puma Punku uniquely troubling isn't just the how, it's the why. Unlike other megalithic sites with clear ceremonial or astronomical purposes, Puma Punku's design feels almost industrial. The repeating H-blocks and geometric precision hint at standardized production, as if part of a larger, unfinished system. Were these stones components of a grand machine, a temple, or something else entirely? The ruins offer no inscriptions, no murals, just silent craftsmanship that refuses to fit neatly into history's timeline. Even the stones themselves seem to defy nature. Andesite, one of the hardest rocks on Earth, is notoriously difficult to carve without modern tools. Yet at Puma Punku, it's shaped with an ease that borders on the surreal. Some blocks bear marks that resemble saw cuts, while others feature symmetrical indentations that look like they were made by a giant press. The sheer volume of these precision-cut stones suggests a level of organization and technical knowledge that contradicts everything we thought we knew about pre-Columbian engineering. Perhaps most haunting is the site's state of devastation. The blocks aren't just weathered, they're scattered as if by catastrophic force, some tossed like toys across the landscape. Local legends speak of a great cataclysm, a flood or fire from the sky that shattered Puma Punku in an instant. Geologists have found evidence of seismic activity, but no single explanation accounts for the sheer violence of the destruction. Was it an earthquake, a deliberate dismantling, or something lost to time? Puma Punku doesn't just challenge our understanding of the past, it taunts us. Every theory crumbles under scrutiny, leaving only the stones themselves as witnesses to a mastery we can't replicate. Whether the work of human ingenuity or a forgotten chapter in our history, these blocks remain a silent provocation. They ask us not just who built them, but whether we've ever truly known the limits of ancient possibility. And until those questions find answers, Puma Punku will stand as a monument not to what we've discovered, but to all we've yet to learn. Nestled in the sleepy town of Homestead, Florida, a bizarre and breathtaking monument stands as a testament to one man's obsession, and perhaps his access to secrets lost to time. The Coral Castle, built entirely from massive blocks of oolite limestone, some weighing as much as 30 tons, was the life's work of a single enigmatic man, Edward Leedskalnin, a 5-foot-tall, 100-pound Latvian immigrant with no formal engineering training. Between 1923 and 1951, working alone and mostly at night, he quarried, carved, and arranged over 1,000 tons of coral rock into arches, walls, and even a functioning sundial, all without modern machinery or witnesses to his methods. When asked how he managed such a feat, Leedskalnin would only smirk and say, "I understand the laws of weight and leverage, but the truth might be far stranger than simple physics." The stones themselves are a marvel of precision. The castle's centerpiece, a 9-ton revolving gate, was so perfectly balanced that a child could push it open with a single finger, yet so precisely fitted that even after decades it barely wobbles. How did Leedskalnin carve these blocks with nothing but handmade tools, some of which were little more than rusted car parts? Witnesses reported hearing him sing to the stones as he worked, leading to wild theories about acoustic levitation or harmonic resonance softening the rock. Others whispered about his obsession with magnetism. He frequently conducted experiments with perpetual motion devices and claimed to have discovered the secret of the pyramids. The most persistent mystery, though, is how he moved these colossal stones alone. Neighbors occasionally spotted him transporting blocks on an old truck, but the truck's bed couldn't support their weight, and no one ever saw cranes or pulleys. Some insist he used reverse-engineered anti-gravity technology, citing his cryptic notebooks filled with diagrams of celestial alignments and cryptic phrases like A. C. Current is the king of all power. Skeptics argue he simply employed clever tricks burying stones to pivot them, or using wooden tripods and chains, yet even these methods fail to fully explain the speed and secrecy of his work. What lingers isn't just the how, but the why. Leedskalnin built the castle for Agnes, a Latvian woman who left him at the altar decades earlier, declaring it would one day be her wedding gift. Was this a labor of love, madness, or something more arcane? The Coral Castle doesn't just defy the limits of human strength, it challenges our very understanding of history's hidden chapters. Whether a monument to lost science or sheer stubborn genius, its stones remain silent, guarding secrets their creator took to the grave, and perhaps that was the point all along. Stretching across the border between Senegal and the Gambia, the Senegambian stone circles stand in quiet defiance of time. A sprawling network of over 1,000 megaliths arranged in perfect rings, some as tall as 10 feet, others weathered down to mere stumps. These aren't randomly placed boulders. Each circle is meticulously constructed with laterite pillars, their reddish hue blending into the African savanna like echoes of a forgotten ritual. What's most striking isn't just their scale, it's the silence that surrounds them. Unlike Egypt's pyramids or Mesopotamia's ziggurats, these circles have no inscriptions, no murals, no buried treasures to hint at their purpose. The people who built them left nothing behind but the stones themselves, and that's where the mystery deepens. Radiocarbon dating places these circles between the 3rd century BCE and the 16th century CE, a staggering time frame that spans empires, migrations, and cultural shifts, yet the construction style remains eerily consistent. Each ring follows the same blueprint, 10 to 24 stones evenly spaced with a precision that suggests more than mere burial markers or territorial symbols. Some researchers believe they were astronomical calendars, aligned to solstices or lunar cycles, while others argue they were sacred spaces for initiation rites or communal gatherings. Then there's the haunting possibility that they're funerary monuments. Excavations have revealed human remains near a few circles, but with no clear pattern. Some burials are elaborate with pottery and jewelry, while others are stark and solitary. Were these circles tombs for the elite, or memorials for ancestors whose names were lost to the wind? the stones raise even more questions when you consider how they were moved. Laterite is notoriously heavy and brittle, yet these pillars were quarried from pits miles away, then shaped and transported without wheels or domesticated animals. Local oral traditions speak of a legendary people, the Sas, who could soften stone with herbal concoctions, a tantalizing clue but one that modern science can't corroborate. Even more puzzling is the lack of nearby settlements. Where did the builders live? Why invest such effort in a landscape seemingly devoid of villages or crops? Some theorists suggest the circles were pilgrimage sites, drawing scattered nomadic groups for seasonal ceremonies, while others propose they mark trade routes or sacred groundwater sources. What makes the Senegambian circles uniquely haunting is their resistance to categorization. They don't fit neatly into any known cultural framework, not the Ghana Empire, not the Mali Kingdom, not even the earlier Tichit tradition. It's as if the builders deliberately erased themselves from history, leaving only these silent sentinels as clues. Modern attempts to preserve the site have only deepened the intrigue. When UNESCO designated it a World Heritage Site in 2006, they noted something peculiar. The stones aren't just placed there planted, with their tapered ends buried deep in the earth like roots. Was this a symbolic gesture, a way to tether the ancestors to the land? Or a practical solution to stabilize the pillars against erosion? Perhaps the most poignant detail is the way local communities interact with the circles today. In a region where oral history is sacred, the stones are still treated with reverence. Elders speak of them as living entities, whispering warnings or blessings to those who listen closely. Rituals are performed there, though no one can say if they mirror the original ceremonies. This isn't just archaeology, it's a dialogue between past and present, where the stones serve as both monument and mystery. What lingers isn't just the question of who built them, but why they chose to speak in a language of stone rather than words. In a world obsessed with leaving records, these circles are a rare enigma, a civilization that measured its legacy not in gold or scriptures, but in the weight of silent rock. And that silence might be the most profound message of all. On the windswept Isle of Lewis in Scotland's Outer Hebrides, the Callanish stones rise like skeletal fingers against the mist, a haunting circle of gneiss monoliths that have watched the skies for over 5,000 years. Unlike Stonehenge's tightly packed pillars, Callanish sprawls in a cruciform pattern, with a central ring linked to avenues of stones stretching north, south, east, and west. But what truly sets this site apart isn't just its shape. It's the way these stones seem to dance with the cosmos. During the summer solstice, the southern avenue aligns perfectly with the rising moon, casting elongated shadows that slither like serpents across the peat. And every 18.6 years, when the moon reaches its southernmost extreme, the entire formation hums with celestial synergy, as if orchestrating a silent dialogue between earth and sky. The precision of these alignments is no accident. The builders, a Neolithic people who left no written records, somehow encoded advanced astronomical knowledge into stone. Some researchers believe Callanish functioned as a lunar observatory, tracking the moon's complex 18-year cycle to predict eclipses or mark sacred dates. Others argue it was a ceremonial stage for rituals tied to the cycles of life and death, a theory supported by the discovery of cremated human remains near the central circle. But perhaps the most chilling clue lies beneath the peat. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed an earlier hidden structure, a massive stone platform buried millennia ago, as if the visible stones are merely the echo of something far older and more profound. Who were these builders? The Isle of Lewis was sparsely populated even in its heyday, with no evidence of a centralized authority capable of coordinating such a project. Local folklore offers eerie hints, speaking of giants turned to stone for refusing to convert to Christianity, or of a shining one who walked the avenues at dawn. Modern archaeology suggests the stones were erected in phases, with generations adding to the site over centuries, yet the consistency of their celestial alignments implies a shared vision passed down like a sacred covenant. The stones themselves deepen the mystery. Gneiss, the rock they're carved from, is notoriously difficult to shape, yet the pillars bear subtle facets and tapering that suggest deliberate artistry. Some lean precariously, as if frozen mid-movement, while others stand arrow-straight, their surfaces pocked by millennia of wind and rain. Even more puzzling is their arrangement. The central circle stones grow taller toward the southwest, creating a staggered profile that mirrors the rolling horizon. Was this intentional symbolism or a practical response to the land's natural contours? What lingers at Kallanish isn't just the question of purpose, but the palpable sense of intention. These aren't random markers, they're a language written in stone and shadow, waiting for the right moment to be read. Whether astronomical calculator, sacred temple, or communal gathering place, the site's true meaning might lie in the way it refuses to yield easy answers. Each alignment, each weathered groove feels like a fingerprint left by minds who saw the universe differently and dared to build their vision where the earth meets the endless sky. Buried in the humid jungles of Veracruz, Mexico, the Olmec colossal heads stare out with an eerie, almost knowing expression. 17 massive basalt sculptures, each weighing between 6 and 50 tons, their features flattened and broad with thick lips, wide noses, and helmets that some say resemble ancient athletic headgear. These aren't just random carvings, they're portraits, each one distinct, as if capturing the likeness of rulers, warriors, or even gods. But here's the puzzle. The Olmecs, considered Mesoamerica's mother culture, flourished around 3,000 years ago, long before wheels or metal tools existed in the region. So how did they move 50-ton stones from quarries 50 miles away, through swamps and dense rainforest to their ceremonial centers? The stone itself tells a story. The basalt came from the Tuxtla Mountains, a region riddled with volcanic rock. Archaeologists have found evidence of stone sleds and rollers near the quarries, suggesting the Olmecs might have dragged these monoliths along log pathways, leveraging brute manpower and ingenuity. But even that theory strains belief. Some heads are so massive that replicating their transport would require hundreds of laborers pulling in unison, a feat of coordination that rivals the construction of the pyramids. Even more baffling is the precision of the carvings. Basalt is brutally hard, yet the Olmecs shaped it with stone tools, possibly using water and abrasives to smooth the surfaces. The details, wrinkles, dimples, even the subtle asymmetry of human faces hint at artisans who didn't just sculpt stone but breathed life into it. Then there's the mystery of identity. Who were these faces meant to immortalize? Some theories suggest they depict Olmec rulers, their helmets symbolizing ceremonial ballgame gear or military rank. Others argue they're representations of deities, perhaps ancestors watching over sacred spaces. The most haunting possibility, that the heads were deliberately buried by the Olmecs themselves as if to hide or protect them. Many were discovered half submerged in the earth, their expressions tilted skyward, waiting to be unearthed millennia later. What makes the colossal heads so captivating isn't just their scale, it's the silence of the civilization behind them. The Olmecs left no written records, only these stone sentinels as clues to their world. Were they honoring kings, gods, or something beyond our understanding? And why invest such staggering effort into monuments that, in some cases, were toppled or buried soon after completion? The heads don't just defy the limits of ancient engineering, they challenge us to reconsider what power and memory meant in a world without words. Standing before them, you don't just see art, you feel the weight of a question carved in stone. Who were they, and why did they want us to remember? Scattered across the Swedish island of Gotland, hidden among windswept fields and coastal cliffs, lie the enigmatic stone ships, massive Viking Age formations where towering rocks rise from the earth like the ribs of long-buried vessels. These ship-shaped arrangements, some stretching over 150 feet in length, were meticulously crafted between the 8th and 12th centuries, their outlines traced with standing stones that mimic the contours of a warship's hull. But these were no mere artistic whimsy. Each ship points rigidly north to south, as if frozen mid-voyage toward some eternal horizon, and beneath them, the ashes of the dead. Archaeologists have uncovered cremated remains and grave goods within these stone frames, swords, brooches, even gaming pieces, hinting at a belief system where death wasn't an end but a journey. The Vikings, master seafarers, saw ships as sacred vessels capable of traversing not just oceans, but the boundary between worlds. The stone ships of Gotland might have been literal vessels for the afterlife, designed to carry souls to Valhalla or the realm of hell. Yet the details resist easy interpretation. Why do some ships cluster in groups while others stand alone? Why are certain stones etched with cryptic symbols like the whirling sun motif found at the stone ship of Unsolved? The precision of these constructions deepens the mystery. The stones aren't haphazardly placed, they follow exact ratios, with the tallest stones often positioned at the prow and stern, mimicking the curvature of a real ship. Some researchers argue they doubled as astronomical markers, their alignments tracking solstices or the path of the Milky Way, a celestial roadmap for the departed. Others suggest they were territorial markers, declaring the presence of a powerful clan. But the most haunting theory comes from local folklore, which claims the ships weren't built by human hands at all. Legends speak of trolls who, caught by sunlight, turned to stone mid-voyage, their petrified crews still lurking beneath the soil. What makes Gotland's stone ships so compelling isn't just their purpose, it's their silence. Unlike rune stones or sagas, these monuments offer no inscriptions, no clear lineage. They're a riddle wrapped in a culture that prized oral tradition, leaving us to piece together meaning from scorched bones and the alignment of rocks. Were they funeral pyres, ritual stages, or portals to another realm? The answer might lie in the island's unique position as a crossroads of Viking trade and mythology, where beliefs from distant shores blended into something entirely new. Standing beside one of these stone vessels today, you can almost hear the whisper of sails long vanished. The wind hums through the gaps in the rocks, a ghostly echo of oars cutting through water. Whether tombs or talismans, the stone ships remind us that for the Vikings, the sea wasn't just a path, it was a bridge between worlds. And in Gotland's quiet fields, those bridges still stand, waiting for someone to decipher their course. Stretching like a broken spine across the Palk Strait, the chain of limestone shoals known as Adam's Bridge, or Rama's Bridge, as it's called in Hindu tradition, has sparked a debate that blurs the line between geology and mythology. On satellite images, the formation appears as a ghostly arc of sandbanks and submerged rocks, linking India's southern tip to Sri Lanka's northwestern coast. At first glance, it seems like a natural wonder, but look closer and the questions begin. Why does this 50-kilometer chain display uncanny symmetry with stones placed in near-perfect alignment? And why do ancient texts like the Sanskrit epic Ramayana describe it as a man-made bridge built by an army of monkeys to rescue a kidnapped princess? The stones themselves tell a conflicted story. Geologists argue the bridge is a classic tombolo, a natural sandbar formed by ocean currents over millennia. The limestone, they say, is nothing more than the remnants of coral reefs and sedimentary deposits shaped by tides and tectonic shifts. Yet, core samples reveal something puzzling. Beneath the surface lie layers of compacted sand and boulders that don't match the loose, unconsolidated material typical of natural formations. Even stranger, some of these stones float, pumice-like chunks of coral limestone when unearthed, bob on water, a trait that aligns eerily with the Ramayana's claim that the bridge was built with lightweight, buoyant rocks inscribed with holy names. The age of the bridge only thickens the mystery. Mainstream science dates it to around 7,000 years old, a time when sea levels rose and submerged the land connection between India and Sri Lanka. But Hindu scholars point to the Ramayana, which places the bridge's construction nearly 1.7 million years ago during the Treta Yuga, an epoch of legendary heroes and divine interventions. Could this be pure mythology, or is there a sliver of geological truth buried in the epic? Some researchers cite underwater archaeological finds, like anomalous tool marks on stones and pottery fragments dredged from the strait, as potential evidence of human intervention. Others counter that ocean currents could have scattered these artifacts from shipwrecks or later settlements. The controversy took a political turn in the early 2000s when plans for a shipping canal threatened to dredge through the bridge. Environmentalists and Hindu groups protested, citing ecological risks and religious significance. Scientists clashed over whether the formation was a barrier protecting Sri Lanka's delicate marine ecosystems or merely an obstacle to modern trade. The debate rages on, with satellite imagery and sonar scans fueling both sides. Some images show what appear to be deliberate gaps like missing planks in a collapsed bridge, while others reveal natural erosional patterns. What lingers isn't just the question of human hands shaping these stones, but the weight of belief itself. For millions, Adam's Bridge isn't a geological quirk, it's proof of a sacred history etched in rock and water. Science may dismiss the Ramayana as allegory, but the shoals remain stubbornly suspended between fact and faith. Whether a divine engineer or the slow churn of the sea shaped them, one thing's certain: this isn't just a bridge between lands, but between worlds where the stones themselves seem to whisper that some truths are too deep to be measured by carbon dating alone. On the remote Bolshoi Zayatsky Island in Russia's White Sea, a series of ancient stone labyrinths spiral across the wind-battered landscape like frozen whirlpools. These intricate stone formations, some dating back over 2,500 years, twist and turn in perfect concentric circles, their paths narrowing toward cryptic centers. Built by an unknown culture long before the Vikings or the Sami people inhabited the region, these labyrinths aren't just puzzles. They're a silent language etched into the earth, one that modern scholars are still struggling to translate. The labyrinths themselves are deceptively simple in design. Each one consists of low stone walls, rarely more than knee-high, arranged in a spiraling pattern that leads inexorably inward. Unlike the towering megaliths of other ancient sites, these structures hug the ground, as if meant to be walked rather than admired from afar. And that's exactly what makes them so enigmatic. Some researchers argue they were ritual pathways used for ceremonial dances or symbolic journeys to the underworld. Others believe they served as training grounds for young hunters, teaching them patience and focus by navigating the twisting paths. But the most compelling theory ties them to the sea. Bolshoi Zayatsky lies along treacherous Arctic shipping routes where fog and storms could disorient even the most seasoned sailors. The labyrinths, some suggest, might have been navigational aid stone maps mirroring the swirling currents and tides, or even celestial markers aligned with the stars. Local fishermen have long referred to them as Babylon, a nod to their dizzying complexity. Intriguingly, similar labyrinths appear across Scandinavia and the British Isles, always near coastlines, as if part of a forgotten maritime tradition spanning continents. Yet the stones guard their secrets tightly. No tools, artifacts, or human remains have been found nearby, leaving no clues about their builders. The few surviving indigenous legends speak of spirits who trapped the unwary in these stone coils, or of portals to other worlds hidden at their centers. Modern experiments only deepen the mystery. When walked, some labyrinths produce strange acoustic effects, echoes that seem to come from beneath the earth, or low-frequency vibrations that unsettle the body. Were these intentional, a way to induce trance states during rituals, or merely a quirk of geology? Perhaps the most haunting detail is their impermanence. The labyrinths weren't built to last. Their stones are unshaped, loosely stacked, vulnerable to the elements. Unlike the pyramids or Stonehenge, these weren't monuments to eternity. They were tools meant to be used and maybe even forgotten. That fleeting quality makes them all the more compelling. Whoever built them left no names, no records, just these spiraling riddles in rock, waiting for someone to walk their paths and listen to what the stones refused to say. In the rugged hills of southern Serbia, a geological oddity rises from the earth like the ruins of an ancient, petrified village, Devil's Town. Here, 200 jagged stone pillars, some towering over 15 feet tall, stand in eerie clusters, their tops weathered into rough, mushroom-like caps. Locals call them Davolja Varosh, or Devil's Town, and for good reason. These formations aren't just strange, they seem almost deliberately placed, their hollow centers and thin, spindly bases defying the logic of natural erosion. But are they the work of time and wind, or something more mysterious? The science behind the stone tents is as fascinating as the myths. Composed of andesite and tough volcanic rock forged in fiery eruptions millions of years ago, these pillars were shaped by centuries of rain washing away softer sediment, leaving the harder rock to form these surreal spires. Yet even geologists admit there's something uncanny about their uniformity. The pillars cluster in distinct streets, as if laid out by some unseen urban planner, and their hollow cores suggest a process more complex than simple erosion. Some researchers point to the region's highly acidic groundwater, which may have chemically sculpted the rock from the inside out, creating those eerie, cave-like interiors. But science alone can't explain the legends clinging to these stones. Local folklore insists Devil's Town was once a thriving village, cursed by a vengeful priest whose wedding guests mocked him. In one version of the tale, the revelers were turned to stone mid-celebration, frozen forever in their sinful dance. Others whisper of a demon who built the pillars as a fortress, only to abandon them when the first rooster crowed at dawn. Even the water here plays into the mythos. Two nearby springs, one improbably red and the other bitterly acidic, are said to be the tears and blood of the damned. What makes Devil's Town truly unsettling isn't just its appearance, but the way it refuses to fit neatly into any category. The pillars aren't just geological quirks, they're a Rorschach test for the imagination. Modern visitors report strange phenomena, echoes that sound like distant chanting, cameras that malfunction without explanation, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. Scientists dismiss these as tricks of the wind or subconscious suggestion, but the stories persist. Perhaps the most compelling question isn't whether the stones are natural or supernatural, but why they captivate us so deeply. There's a primal unease in their resemblance to human forms, a sense that they're not quite of this world. Whether carved by time or tragedy, Devil's Town stands as a reminder that some landscapes refuse to be explained, only witnessed. And in that silence between fact and folklore, the stones keep their secrets, waiting for the next curious soul to wander their stony streets and wonder. Deep in the forests of Bosnia, hidden among rolling hills and river valleys, lie spherical stones so perfectly round they seem to defy nature itself. The stone spheres of Bosnia, some measuring over 10 feet in diameter, have ignited a firestorm of debate between archaeologists, geologists, and independent researchers. Are these enigmatic orbs the handiwork of an ancient civilization, or merely the product of geological quirks? The answer, much like the stones, refuses to roll neatly into place. The most famous cluster, discovered near the town of Zavodovosai, features dozens of these spheres, their surfaces smoothed to an almost unnatural finish. Initial tests suggest they're made of granodiorite, an incredibly dense volcanic rock that would have required immense effort to shape. Proponents of the man-made theory, like controversial researcher Semir Osmanagic, point to their precise symmetry and clustered placements, some arranged in straight lines or geometric patterns, as evidence of intelligent design. Comparisons to Costa Rica's stone spheres only deepen the intrigue. Could these be remnants of a shared, pan-European culture lost to time? Skeptics, however, counter with a simpler explanation: concretion. This natural process occurs when mineral cement precipitates around a core, slowly forming spherical shapes over millennia. Similar formations exist worldwide, from the Moeraki boulders of New Zealand to the Kautu boulders of New Zealand. Geologists note that Bosnia's spheres often appear along riverbeds or in sedimentary layers, classic environments for concretions to form. Yet even this theory stumbles when confronted with anomalies. Some spheres exhibit tool marks or unusual hollows, while others contain embedded metals or crystalline structures atypical of natural formations. The controversy reaches fever pitch when local legends enter the fray. Folktales speak of a time when giants inhabited the land, playing games with these stone balls before abandoning them. More tantalizing are claims that certain spheres emit electromagnetic frequencies or sit atop underground water veins, echoing New Age theories about ley lines and earth energies. Scientific instruments have indeed detected minor magnetic anomalies near some stones, though mainstream researchers attribute this to mineral composition rather than ancient technology. What makes Bosnia's spheres uniquely compelling isn't just the debate over their origins, it's their emotional resonance. For Bosnians, these stones have become symbols of cultural identity, with some even integrated into town squares and memorials. They've survived wars, looters, and the corrosive march of time, their smooth surfaces bearing silent witness to centuries of human drama. Whether geological marvels or artifacts of a forgotten people, they challenge us to reckon with the blurred line between nature's artistry and humanity's imprint. And until that line is definitively drawn, these silent spheres will keep spinning their riddles into the future. Standing like ancient sentinels on England's Salisbury Plain, the Sarsen stones of Stonehenge dominate the landscape with a silent authority that has baffled scholars for centuries. These towering megaliths, some reaching heights of 30 feet and weighing as much as 50 tons, form the iconic outer circle and inner horseshoe of the monument. But their sheer size is only the beginning of the mystery. How did Neolithic builders, without the benefit of wheels or draft animals, transport these colossal slabs from the Marlborough Downs over 20 miles away to their current resting place? And more importantly, why go to such extraordinary lengths to bring them here? The journey of the Sarsens is a feat that defies conventional understanding. Quarried from one of the hardest rocks in the region, these slabs were shaped with stone tools into smooth, rectangular pillars, their surfaces meticulously pounded and polished. Some bear subtle carvings of daggers and axes, faint echoes of a symbolic language we can only guess at, but the real enigma lies in their transportation. Modern experiments have tried replicating the process using wooden sledges, rollers, and earthen ramps. Yet even with these methods, moving a single sarsen would require hundreds of laborers working in perfect harmony. Local folklore offers a more whimsical explanation. Merlin himself, the legendary wizard, is said to have levitated the stones into place with magic. While that's pure myth, it underscores the sheer improbability of the task. Then there's the question of purpose. Unlike the blue stones, which were likely revered for their spiritual or healing properties, the sarsens seem to serve a more structural role. Their arrangement creates a series of precise alignments with solstice sunrises and sunsets, suggesting Stonehenge functioned as a colossal astronomical calendar. But recent discoveries hint at something even more profound. Laser scans have revealed hidden carvings and where patterns indicating the stones may have been repositioned multiple times over centuries, as if their builders were fine-tuning a celestial machine. Some researchers speculate the sarsens acted as acoustic amplifiers, their unique composition resonating with sound during rituals to create an otherworldly atmosphere. What makes the sarsens uniquely haunting isn't just their scale, it's their silence. These stones don't just stand, they loom, their presence a constant reminder of a people who left no written records, only a monument that refuses to surrender its secrets. Were they altars for sacrifice, gateways to the divine, or markers of a forgotten science? The truth might lie buried in the surrounding landscape. Recent excavations have uncovered pits and posts predating the Saracens, suggesting Stonehenge was part of a vast ceremonial complex, a sacred stage where the stones played a starring role in rituals now lost to time. Perhaps the most humbling thought is this: the Saracens were never meant to be understood by future generations. They were built to speak to their creators alone, a language of rock and sky we're still struggling to decode. Every chip in the stone, every alignment with the heavens, whispers of a world so different from our own that even our most advanced technology can't fully bridge the gap. And that's the real power of Stonehenge, not the answers it gives, but the questions it keeps alive. Standing in their shadow, you don't just see ancient engineering, you feel the weight of a mystery that outlasts empires. Scattered across the hills of Zimbabwe, the Great Zimbabwe Ruins stand as one of Africa's most enduring enigmas. A sprawling complex of stone walls, towers, and circular structures that hint at a sophisticated civilization lost to time. At the heart of this mystery lie the stone circles, meticulously arranged rings of granite that seem to whisper secrets of a forgotten era. Built between the 11th and 15th centuries, these circles aren't just random piles of rock. They're precision-crafted enclosures, some with walls towering over 30 feet high, fitted together without mortar. But the real puzzle isn't just how they were built, it's why and by whom. The stones themselves tell a story of astonishing skill. Each block was carefully shaped to interlock with its neighbors, creating walls so sturdy they've weathered centuries of wind and rain. The most striking feature is their astronomical alignment. Certain circles line up with the solstice sunrises, while others frame the rising of key stars like Sirius or Orion's belt. This suggests the builders weren't just masons, they were sky watchers, meticulously tracking celestial events to mark time or guide rituals. Some researchers believe these alignments were tied to agricultural cycles, signaling planting or harvest seasons. Others argue they served as sacred spaces for ceremonies, where the stones acted as portals between the earthly and spiritual realms. Yet the identity of these builders remains hotly debated. The site's name, Great Zimbabwe, derives from the Shona phrase Dizimba Mabwe, meaning houses of stone, but the people who erected these structures left no written records. Portuguese traders in the 16th century heard tales of a gold-rich kingdom, fueling myths of the biblical King Solomon's mines. Modern archaeology dismisses that connection, pointing instead to the Shona civilization, ancestors of today's Zimbabweans. But even this theory has gaps. The sheer scale of the site, covering nearly 1,800 acres, implies a centralized authority with vast resources, yet no evidence of a ruling class or royal tombs has been found. The stones raise even thornier questions when you consider their construction. Unlike Egypt's pyramids or Europe's cathedrals, Great Zimbabwe wasn't built with slave labor or foreign technology. The work was communal, a testament to collective effort, but how did they quarry and transport these granite blocks without wheels or beasts of burden? Local legends speak of a mystical golden bird, the Andoro, which guided the builders, a poetic nod to their ingenuity. Skeptics insist it was sheer manpower, with teams using levers, ropes, and log rollers. Yet the precision of the curves, the flawless joints, and the alignment with the stars suggest a level of knowledge that still feels inexplicable. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of Zimbabwe's stone circles is their silence. They offer no inscriptions, no carvings, no clear clues to their purpose. Were they palaces, trading hubs, or cosmic temples? The ruins' layout hints at all three, with separate areas for elites, artisans, and rituals. But without a Rosetta Stone to decode their meaning, we're left with fragments of a story. Even the site's abandonment in the 15th century is a riddle. Was it climate change, overpopulation, or a shift in trade routes that scattered the builders? The stones won't say. What lingers isn't just the mystery of their origin, but the weight of their legacy. These circles aren't just relics, they're a challenge to the outdated notion that Africa lacked advanced civilizations before European contact. Great Zimbabwe stands as proof of innovation and ambition, a place where stone and sky converged in a language we're still learning to read. And until we do, these silent rings will keep their secrets, waiting for the day their whispers finally find the right ears. Tucked away in the forests and farmlands of New England, beneath tangled roots and moss-covered hillsides, sit hundreds of mysterious stone chambers, windowless, doorless structures built with such precision that they've baffled historians for centuries. These aren't colonial root cellars or forgotten barn foundations. The stonework is too deliberate, the designs too sophisticated. Some chambers curve into perfect beehive shapes, their ceilings arched like cathedral domes, while others stretch into long, narrow passageways aligned with solstice sunrises. But the most unsettling detail, no one knows who built them or why. The stones themselves tell a story that defies conventional history. The walls are dry stacked, fitted together without mortar, yet so tightly that even after centuries you can't slide a knife between the seams. Many chambers feature massive lintel stones weighing several tons, positioned with an engineering finesse that rivals Neolithic sites in Europe. And then there's the placement. These structures cluster along ley lines, hypothetical energy paths some believe connect sacred sites, often near springs or atop magnetic anomalies. In Upton, Massachusetts, one chamber's entrance frames the winter solstice sunrise, flooding the interior with light for just a few minutes each year. Was this intentional or a cosmic coincidence? Theories about their origins spiral from the scholarly to the sensational. Mainstream archaeologists often dismiss them as colonial-era root cellars, but that explanation crumbles under scrutiny. Many chambers predate European settlers, with carbon-dated organic material inside suggesting construction as early as the 7th century. Indigenous oral traditions don't claim them either, leaving a vacuum filled with wild speculation. Some researchers point to the Vikings, citing similarities to Icelandic Scala or Irish Clichons. Others argue for Phoenician or Celtic voyagers, noting Ogham-like carvings on nearby boulders. Then there's the radical fringe, whispers of Templar refugees or even extraterrestrial architects, but perhaps the most compelling clue lies beneath the chambers. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed tunnels and additional rooms yet to be excavated, hinting at a subterranean network. Local legends speak of dwarf holes or fairy dens, places where the earth opens to another world. In South Woodstock, Connecticut, a chamber known as the Calendar Roman II site features a hidden shaft that aligns with the Pleiades star cluster, a celestial marker revered by cultures worldwide. Could these chambers be ancient observatories, ceremonial spaces, or even shelters for something, or someone we've yet to name? What lingers isn't just the question of who built them, but why they've been so thoroughly erased from history. Unlike pyramids or standing stones, these chambers don't announce their presence. They hide, waiting to be stumbled upon, as if their makers intended secrecy. Maybe that's the real mystery, not the stones themselves, but the silence surrounding them. And until that silence breaks, these shadowed rooms will keep their secrets, whispering only to those willing to step inside and listen. Rising like spectral vessels from the misty shores of Scandinavia, the stone ships stand as one of the Vikings' most haunting legacies, monuments where the boundary between the living and the dead blurs into myth. These ship-shaped formations, built entirely from standing stones, stretch across coastal landscapes from Sweden to Norway, their outlines tracing the elegant curves of a warship's hull. Some are modest, barely 20 feet long, while others sprawl over 150 feet, their prows and sterns marked by towering boulders as if frozen mid-voyage. But these weren't just artistic tributes to the seafaring life. Beneath their stone frames lie the ashes of warriors, chieftains, and perhaps even entire families, their remains buried with swords, shields, and talismans meant to guide them to the afterlife. What makes these stone ships so mesmerizing isn't just their form, it's their deliberate impermanence. Unlike Egypt's pyramids or Rome's mausoleums, these weren't built to endure for eternity. The stones are unshaped, loosely stacked, as if the Vikings understood that memory, like the sea, is ever shifting. Each ship points rigidly north to south, a detail that's puzzled archaeologists for decades. Some believe it reflects the Norse cosmology, where the dead sailed to realms like Valhalla or Helheim. Others argue it's a practical choice, aligning with the magnetic pull of the Earth or the path of the Milky Way, a celestial roadmap for the departed. The symbolism runs even deeper when you consider the rituals tied to these sites. Excavations reveal charcoal stains and animal bones, remnants of feasts held to honor the dead. Some ships cluster in groups, forming entire fleets of the afterlife, while others stand alone, as if marking the grave of a solitary wanderer. At the site of Annenkirk in Sweden, one of the largest stone ships is flanked by burial mounds, their placement suggesting a hierarchy, perhaps a chieftain and his retinue sailing together into eternity. Yet for all their grandeur, these monuments leave no inscriptions, no names. The Vikings, a people who carved runes into everything from weapons to breadboards, chose silence here. Why local folklore offers eerie hints. Legends speak of these stones as frozen ships, vessels turned to rock by trolls or gods as punishment for some long-forgotten sin. Others claim the ships weren't built by human hands at all, but rose spontaneously from the earth to claim the dead. Modern technology adds another layer of mystery. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed hidden chambers beneath some stones, their contents still unexplored. Even more intriguing are the acoustic anomalies reported by visitors' echoes that mimic the creak of oars or the sigh of wind in sails, as if the ships are still somehow in motion. The greatest enigma, though, lies in their distribution. Stone ships appear not just in Scandinavia, but as far afield as Estonia and Scotland, suggesting a shared maritime belief system that spanned Viking trade routes. Were they territorial markers declaring a clan's dominance over coastal lands, or portable mythologies carried by settlers to new shores? The answer might lie in the ship's one consistent feature, their emptiness. Unlike Egyptian tombs or Celtic barrows, these aren't filled with treasures or elaborate grave goods. The real wealth was the ship itself, a vessel for the soul, not the body. Standing beside one of these stone fleets today, you can almost hear the whisper of a culture that saw death not as an end, but as a journey. The Vikings, master navigators of both sea and spirit, built monuments that mirrored their worldview, transient yet eternal, anchored to the earth yet forever sailing into the unknown. And perhaps that's the most profound lesson of the stone ships. They remind us that some voyages don't need wood or wind, just stones and the stories we dare to carve into them. In the highlands of northern Ethiopia, the ancient city of Axum rises like an open-air museum of forgotten giants. Here, standing tall against the African sky, are the towering stelae, massive stone obelisks, some reaching heights of over 100 feet. Their surfaces intricately carved with false doors, windows, and architectural details that mirror the grand palaces of a lost kingdom. The largest of these monoliths, the Great Stele, would have dwarfed even the tallest standing stones of Europe, had it not fallen and shattered centuries ago. But the real mystery isn't just their size. It's how a civilization without cranes, pulleys, or metal tools managed to quarry, transport, and erect these colossal slabs of granite with such precision. The stones themselves are masterpieces of ancient engineering. Each stele was carved from single blocks of nepheline syenite, a dense volcanic rock hauled from quarries nearly 2 miles away. The largest weigh upwards of 160 tons, heavier than a blue whale, yet they were somehow dragged across rugged terrain and hoisted upright with a stability that has kept them standing for over 1,700 years. Local legends speak of the Ark of the Covenant's divine power aiding the effort, while archaeologists point to ingenious use of ramps, ropes, and sheer manpower. But even these explanations strain credibility. The bases of the stelae fit into socket stones with such exactness that they resist even the region's frequent earthquakes. How did the Axumites achieve this level of precision without modern measuring tools? The carvings deepen the enigma. Unlike the abstract symbols of other megalithic cultures, Axum's stelae are adorned with detailed representations of multi-story buildings, complete with crossbeam windows and ornamental moldings. Some researchers believe they're stylized replicas of royal palaces, serving as tombstones for Axum's elite. Others argue they were cosmic markers, their alignment with stars like Sirius reflecting a sophisticated understanding of astronomy. The most tantalizing theory ties them to the Queen of Sheba's legendary reign, suggesting the stelae were part of a grand ceremonial complex linked to her fabled visit to King Solomon. Yet the stones guard their secrets fiercely. The Axumite kingdom left no written records explaining their purpose, and the few surviving inscriptions are in Ge'ez, an ancient script still only partially deciphered. Even the stelae's downfall is shrouded in mystery. Many were toppled, possibly by invading forces or earthquakes, but local lore whispers of a Christian king's wrath, destroying these pagan monuments in the 4th century when Axum converted. The one stele that still stands in its original position, the King Azana stone, bears a trilingual inscription, a Rosetta Stone of sorts, hinting at the cultural crossroads Axum once occupied. What lingers isn't just the stone's grandeur, but the questions they force us to confront. Why invest such staggering resources in monuments with no apparent practical use? Were they statements of power, bridges to the divine, or something more alien to our modern minds? Axum's stelae don't just challenge our understanding of ancient engineering, they remind us that some civilizations measured their legacy not in gold or conquests, but in the weight of stone and the persistence of memory. And standing in their shadow today, you can't help but wonder if we've ever truly grasped the depths of their ambition. The rolling green hills and misty moors of the British Isles hide more than just natural beauty. They cradle silent rings of ancient stone that have watched over the land for millennia. While Stonehenge dominates the world's imagination, it's just one of over 1,300 stone circles scattered across Britain, Ireland, and Scotland, each with its own unique character and unsolved riddles. From the windswept Orkney Islands to the rugged peaks of Wales, these mysterious formations range from humble clusters of knee-high rocks to sprawling complexes like Overbury, where massive standing stones encircle an entire village. Take the Callanish stones on Scotland's Isle of Lewis, for instance. Unlike Stonehenge's uniform pillars, Callanish forms a cross-shaped pattern, with a central circle and radiating avenues aligned to the moon's most extreme rising and setting points. Walking among them, you can almost feel the builder's obsession with celestial rhythms, a connection so precise that modern astronomers still marvel at its accuracy. Then there's Castlereagh in England's Lake District, where 38 stones stand sentinel in a natural amphitheater of mountains. Unlike many circles, Castlereagh isn't just about the sky. Its stones frame the surrounding peaks as if tethering the earth to the heavens. But what were these circles really for? The theories are as varied as the stones themselves. Some archaeologists argue they were astronomical calendars, tracking solstices and equinoxes to guide planting and harvests. Others see them as ritual spaces, sites for ceremonies, initiations, or even sacrifices. At the Rollright Stones in Oxfordshire, local folklore insists the stones are a petrified king and his knights cursed by a witch for their arrogance. Scientific excavations have turned up human bones and cremation ashes at some sites, hinting at funerary purposes, while others show evidence of feasting and gatherings, suggesting communal festivals. The real enigma lies in their construction. Unlike the pyramids or Roman aqueducts, these circles weren't built by centralized empires with armies of laborers. Many were raised by small, scattered communities, farmers and hunters who somehow coordinated to haul multi-ton stones across miles of rough terrain. How? In Cornwall's Merry Maiden's Circle, legend claims the stones were dancing girls turned to rock for violating the Sabbath. The truth might be less magical but no less impressive: timber sledges, earthen ramps, and a deep, collective determination to mark the landscape in ways we still don't fully grasp. What's most haunting is the silence they leave behind. Unlike Egypt's hieroglyphs or Mesopotamia's cuneiform, Britain's stone circles offer no inscriptions, no clear lineage. The people who built them left no written records, only these granite riddles. Were they temples, clocks, or something more primal, a way to impose order on a chaotic world? Even the circle's decline is a mystery. By the Bronze Age, many were abandoned or dismantled, their stones repurposed for walls or roads. Perhaps the answer isn't in the stones alone, but in the land they inhabit. Stand in the center of Swinside in Cumbria as dawn breaks, and you'll notice something unsettling. The circle doesn't just frame the sunrise, it amplifies it, turning the horizon into a spectacle. Maybe that was the point all along, not to solve the mystery of the cosmos, but to feel it deeply and wordlessly. These circles aren't just relics, they're conversations frozen in stone, waiting for us to listen. Walking through the narrow streets of Cusco, Peru, the past presses in from every angle, especially when you run your fingers along the city's ancient stone walls. These aren't just ordinary barriers, they're masterclasses in engineering, built by the Inca with such precision that even after centuries of earthquakes, they stand perfectly intact. The stones, some weighing over 100 tons, are cut and fitted together so tightly that you can't slip a piece of paper between them. No mortar, no gaps, just seamless joints that seem to defy the laws of physics. The secret lies in their design. Unlike straight, uniform blocks, the Inca stones are irregular polygons, each one uniquely shaped to interlock with its neighbors like a giant three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. This technique, known as ashlar masonry, isn't just for show. When the ground shakes, as it often does in this seismically active region, the walls don't resist the movement. Instead, they dance, shifting slightly without collapsing, then settling back into place. Modern engineers still study these walls for inspiration, marveling at how the Inca achieved earthquake resilience long before the concept even had a name. But how the Inca had no iron tools, no wheels, no cranes, just bronze chisels, stone hammers, and an intimate knowledge of rock. Some researchers believe they used a combination of heat and sudden cooling to fracture boulders along natural lines, then painstakingly polished the edges with sand and water. Others point to mysterious, vitrified marks on certain stones, glass-like streaks, that suggest the Inca might have softened the rock with plant acids or high-temperature fires, molding it like clay. Then there are the legends, tales of a mythical substance, llama's blood mixed with herbs, said to dissolve stone. While that's likely poetic license, it hints at lost techniques we've yet to rediscover. The walls also whisper of a deeper purpose. Many are built atop far older foundations, hinting at a civilization that predated even the Inca. In the Coricancha, Cusco's once gilded temple of the sun, Spanish colonizers noted with frustration how the Inca stonework outshone their own attempts to build atop it. The stones here aren't just stacked, they're alive, radiating a quiet power that modern concrete can't replicate. Some believe the walls follow ley lines, harnessing Earth's energy, while others argue their alignment with solstices proves they were more than mere architecture. What's most humbling is the scale of the labor. These walls stretch for miles, their construction requiring not just skill, but a communal vision. The Inca didn't enslave people to build them. They organized mita, a system of shared labor where communities contributed in exchange for food, shelter, and spiritual fulfillment. That these stones still stand today isn't just a testament to engineering, it's a monument to cooperation, a reminder that the greatest achievements aren't lifted by individual hands but by many. Yet for all we've learned, the walls guard their deepest secrets closely. Why do some stones bear peculiar knobs or protrusions like handles meant for giants? Why were certain blocks transported from quarries dozens of miles away when local stone would have sufficed? The Inca left no blueprints, only these silent sentinels of rock, their smooth surfaces daring us to unravel the genius etched into every seam. Standing before them, you don't just see a wall, you feel the weight of a civilization that understood stone not as an obstacle, but as a conversation partner, shaping it with a patience we've long since forgotten. Rising from the rocky coastline of Malta like the bones of some long-dead giant, the massive stone pillars of Haga Kim refused to crumble, even after 5,000 years of Mediterranean sun and salt-laced winds. This prehistoric temple complex, older than both Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids, is a labyrinth of towering megaliths arranged in elliptical chambers and corridors, their surfaces pockmarked by time but still bearing silent witness to a culture lost in the shadows of history. But what makes Haga Kim truly extraordinary isn't just its age, it's the way these stones seem to whisper secrets about the stars. The largest of the temple's megaliths weighs a staggering 20 tons, hauled into place by a people who left behind no written records, no metal tools, and no explanation for how they achieved such a feat. Some blocks are so precisely positioned that during the summer solstice, sunlight pierces through an elliptical hole in the stone, casting a beam that illuminates a specific altar slab inside. The winter solstice brings another alignment. The first rays of dawn slip between two pillars to strike a niche in the deepest chamber, as if marking some sacred moment known only to the builders. Were these celestial events mere calendars or something deeper? Portals to communicate with gods, ancestors, or forces beyond our understanding? Then there's the mystery of the oracle holes, small apertures drilled through certain stones. Some researchers suggest these were used for ritual divination, with priests speaking through them to deliver prophecies. Others point to their acoustic properties when wind passes through. It creates an eerie, almost melodic hum, amplifying the sense of otherworldliness. The stones themselves add to the enigma. Unlike most megalithic sites, Haga Kim's pillars are made of Globigerina limestone, a soft rock that should have eroded into dust centuries ago. Yet here they stand, defying logic, their survival attributed by some to a deliberate coating of mineral-rich plaster, long since worn away but hinted at in microscopic traces. But the greatest puzzle of all is the people behind these stones. The temple's builders, part of Malta's enigmatic temple culture, vanished abruptly around 2500 BC, leaving no clues to their fate. No war, no famine, no mass graves, just empty islands and these silent sentinels of stone. Some speculate they overexploited the land, while fringe theories suggest a cataclysmic event or even extraterrestrial intervention. The truth might lie in the temple's alignment not just to the sky but to the earth. Recent surveys reveal underground chambers and hidden tunnels, their purpose still unknown. Were they tombs, storage pits, or gateways to something older still? Haga Kim doesn't just challenge our timeline of human achievement, it taunts us. In a world where we've mapped the human genome and probed the edges of the solar system, these stones remain a cipher, their language etched not in words but in sunlight and shadow. To walk among them is to feel the weight of time itself, and the humbling realization that some secrets are carved too deep for any era to fully uncover. While the towering moai dominate Easter Island's skyline, scattered across the slopes of Ronoroku crater lie hundreds of lesser-known statues unfinished, half-buried, or abandoned in mid-creation. These forgotten giants, some still attached to the bedrock as if frozen in time, reveal secrets about the Rapa Nui people that the iconic standing moai never could. With sunken eyes and elongated features, these partially carved figures hint at a society far more complex than the simplistic narratives of collapse. Why were they left unfinished? Was it a sudden crisis, a shift in beliefs, or something more mysterious? The quarry at Ronoroku is a haunting open-air workshop where the island's volcanic tuff proved perfect for sculpting. Walking among these dormant figures, you'll notice something unsettling. Many are buried up to their necks, their bodies hidden beneath centuries of eroded sediment. Excavations in recent years have uncovered startling details, intricate carvings on their torsos, spirals and symbols that suggest these weren't just heads, but full-bodied figures meant to be seen from the ground up. Some even have dorsal fins or fish-like motifs, leading to theories that they represented ancestral spirits linked to the ocean. Then there's the puzzle of transportation. While the classic theory suggests the moai were walked upright using ropes, the quarry's unfinished statues complicate the story. Deep grooves carved into the crater's inner walls suggest some were slid downhill on makeshift tracks, while others show evidence of being dragged horizontally. Broken statues litter the routes leading away from Rono Roroku, their fractures telling silent tales of failed attempts, but the most baffling discovery. Several statues were found miles from the quarry with no clear path between, some even positioned facing inland, as if guarding something unseen. Local legends speak of Mana, a spiritual force that animated the stones, granting them the power to move on their own. Purpose remains the biggest mystery. Were these statues clan markers, territorial symbols, or conduits for communication with the divine? Recent studies of the island's ancient road networks reveal something unexpected. The statues aren't randomly placed. They form deliberate alignments with freshwater sources, suggesting they might have been part of a vast hydrological map, guiding communities to survival in a fragile ecosystem. Others point to their astronomical orientations. Certain statues align with solstice sunrises or the rising of Matariki, the Pleiades, vital for agricultural cycles. But perhaps the most haunting question isn't how or why they were made, it's why the carving stopped. The prevailing narrative blames deforestation and warfare, but the stones tell a different story. Tools were abandoned mid-use. Some statues were even left with their backs still attached to the rock, as if the sculptors simply walked away. New evidence hints at a more nuanced end, a gradual shift in priorities, perhaps toward birdman cults or ocean voyaging, leaving the old gods half-born in the stone. These unfinished giants are more than failed projects. They're snapshots of a civilization in flux, frozen between what was and what might have been. Standing before them, you don't just see art, you feel the weight of choices unmade, a reminder that even the grandest visions can be left incomplete, whispering across time in a language of rock and silence. Among the windswept coasts and frozen islands of Scandinavia, a different kind of stone mystery sits hidden in plain sight, the ancient labyrinths. These spiraling paths of carefully placed rocks, some dating back over 3,000 years, twist and turn in patterns so deliberate they feel almost alive underfoot. Unlike towering megaliths or carved statues, these labyrinths are flat, their power lying not in height but in movement, a silent invitation to walk the path, to follow the stones wherever they may lead. Found mostly in Sweden, Finland, and Russia's Solovetsky Islands, these formations range from simple circles to complex, multicursal designs that would feel at home in a medieval cathedral. The most haunting question isn't their construction. Anyone could stack these small stones, but their purpose. Unlike other ancient monuments tied to burials or celestial events, the labyrinths resist easy categorization. One prevailing theory links them to fishing rituals. Coastal labyrinths often sit near shorelines, and Nordic fishermen may have walked them before voyages, believing the twisting paths could trap evil spirits or ensure abundant catches. Another hypothesis ties them to initiation rites, where the act of navigating the labyrinth symbolized a journey to adulthood or the afterlife. Then there's the celestial connection. Certain labyrinths align with solstice sunrises, their paths mirroring the sun's winding descent into winter and rebirth in spring. But the most tantalizing clue lies in their distribution. These labyrinths appear almost exclusively in the Arctic and subarctic, overlapping with indigenous Sami territories. The Sami, renowned for their shamanic traditions, speak of no-eyed spirits who could travel between worlds, sometimes using stone formations as portals. Could the labyrinths have been spiritual tools aiding shamans in navigating trance states? Some modern walkers report dizziness or altered perceptions after completing the path, as if the stones themselves exert a subtle, disorienting pull. Yet the stones guard their secrets fiercely. No artifacts or remains have been found nearby, leaving no trail of tools or offerings. Even their age is debated. While some date to the Bronze Age, others may be medieval or even later, built by sailors inspired by older designs. The lack of written records forces us to rely on folklore, where labyrinths are called Jungfruden's Virgin's Dance or Trojaborg, linking them to mythical Trojan castles. One legend claims they were built by giants to confuse trespassers. Another says they're frozen dances of witches turned to stone. What lingers isn't just the mystery of their origin, but the way they refuse to stay in the past. Today, locals still maintain these labyrinths, adding stones to eroded sections or holding midsummer gatherings within their coils. They're not relics behind glass but living puzzles, their meaning reshaped by each generation that walks them. Whether ancient navigational aids, spiritual gateways, or something beyond our grasp, these stone spirals whisper the same truth. Some paths aren't meant to be solved, only traveled. Scattered across the rugged Irish landscape like weathered crowns, the stone forts of Ireland stand as silent sentinels of a forgotten age. These circular stone structures, known as cashels or cahers, range from modest family enclosures to massive complexes like Grianon of Aileach, whose walls stretch over 15 feet high and 20 feet thick. Built without mortar, their stones fitted together with such precision that many have withstood over 1,000 years of wind and rain, their origins shrouded in the same mist that curls around their ramparts. But who built these imposing rings of stone, and more intriguingly why? The debate over their purpose splits scholars into two camps. One argues these forts were purely defensive, designed to repel invaders during Ireland's turbulent early medieval period. The thick walls, often perched on hilltops with commanding views, suggest strategic strongholds. Staig Fort in County Kerry, for example, features inner staircases leading to parapets where sentries could keep watch, while its single narrow entrance, a deliberate bottleneck, would have been easy to defend. Even the name fort implies martial intent, a holdover from early archaeologists who assumed every ancient wall was built for war, but not all the evidence fits. Some forts, like Cahercamon in County Clare, sit on precarious cliff edges with no clear water source or farmland nearby, making them impractical for long sieges. Others lack signs of battle, like scorch marks or weapon fragments, leaving their violent past in question. This leads to the second, more enigmatic theory, that the forts were ceremonial or symbolic spaces. Their circular design mirrors older Neolithic patterns, think Stonehenge or Newgrange, linking them to cosmic cycles or communal rituals. At the Dun Éanghasa fortress on the Aran Islands, the western side of the ring opens dramatically to a sheer cliff drop, a feature that seems to defy logic for defense but aligns perfectly with sunset during the winter solstice. Could these forts have been theaters for solstice gatherings, where chieftains or druids addressed crowds with the crashing Atlantic as their backdrop? Folklore adds fuel to the mystery. Local legends speak of the forts as fairy rings, gateways to the otherworld where the stones hummed with supernatural energy after dark. Even today, some farmers refuse to disturb them, fearing bad luck from angering the Shia, the ancient spirit said to dwell within. The stones themselves deepen the puzzle. Unlike later medieval castles, many forts were built with materials not local to their sites. At Mooghorn Hill Fort in County Clare, the basalt stones were hauled from miles away, a staggering effort for a people without wheels or pack animals. The labor involved suggests communal cooperation, possibly to mark territory or unify clans under a shared symbol. Yet the absence of tools, refused pits, or even clear hearths at some sites hints they weren't permanent settlements. Were they seasonal gathering places like ancient Irish convention centers, or perhaps banks literal stone repositories for wealth, since precious metals and livestock were the currency of the time? What lingers isn't just the question of function, but the identity of the builders. The forts predate written records, leaving no names or clan affiliations. Some scholars tie them to the mysterious Deisi tribes, while others see the hand of early Christian monks repurposing pagan sites. Carbon dating offers only vague timelines, with construction waves spanning from the Bronze Age to the early medieval period. The truth might lie in the stone's endurance. Unlike wood or earthworks, these forts were built to last not just physically, but culturally. Whether strongholds, temples, or symbols of power, they whisper of a society that measured its legacy not in parchment, but in the weight of rock and the patience to stack it just so. Standing inside one today, the air thick with the scent of damp moss and old earth, you realize these aren't just ruins, they're conversations. The stones don't care if we call them forts or shrines. They stand as they always have, defying categories, daring us to rethink what we know about the past. And perhaps that's their real purpose, not to keep us out, but to draw us in, one unanswered question at a time. Along the windswept coast of Brittany in France, the Karnak stone alignments form one of the most baffling prehistoric landscapes on Earth. A vast, almost militaristic grid of nearly 3,000 standing stones stretching over 4 kilometers in eerie parallel rows. Unlike the clustered circles of Stonehenge or the solitary dolmens dotting Europe, Karnak's megaliths march across the terrain with unsettling precision, some towering 20 feet high while others crouch low like teeth in the earth. The sheer scale of the site defies logic. 3 main alignments, Menek, Kermario, and Kerleskan, each composed of hundreds of granite monoliths positioned with geometric discipline. But the most compelling question isn't just how they were placed here, it's why they form such deliberate patterns and what cosmic secrets they might encode. Archaeologists estimate these stones were erected around 4,500 years ago, long before written history in the region. Their exact purpose remains one of Europe's greatest unsolved puzzles, but the leading theory points to the stars. Certain rows align precisely with the sunrise during solstices, while others track the moon's extreme positions during its 18.6-year cycle. At Menek, the largest alignment, the stones fan out like a giant stone comb, their spacing mirroring the increments of lunar movements. This precision suggests Karnak's builders weren't just marking time. They were mapping the heavens with a sophistication rivaling modern observatories. Some researchers argue the site functioned as a colossal calendar, helping Neolithic farmers predict seasons or eclipses. Others propose it was a sacred stage for rituals where the stones channeled celestial energy or served as pathways for ceremonial processions. Yet the stones resist easy interpretation. Unlike later monuments adorned with carvings or burial goods, Karnak offers no inscriptions, no artifacts, no clear trail back to its creators. The absence of settlements or tools nearby deepens the mystery. Who were these builders, and why did they invest generations hauling 50-ton slabs into these exact configurations? Local legends whisper that the stones are a petrified Roman legion, cursed by the wizard Merlin for their arrogance. While that's pure myth, it underscores the site's uncanny aura. Even modern technology struggles to explain the logistics. Experiments with Neolithic techniques, wooden sledges, ropes, and earthen ramps show the movement of a single Karnak megalith would require hundreds of people working in flawless coordination. What makes Karnak uniquely haunting isn't just the scale of its ambition, it's the silence of the civilization behind it. Unlike Egypt's pyramids or Greece's temples, there's no grand empire left to claim these stones. They stand as relics of a people who studied the skies with meticulous patience, then vanished without leaving a name. Recent LiDAR surveys have revealed even more hidden stones beneath the soil, suggesting the visible alignments are just fragments of a far vaster network. Were they part of a pilgrimage route, a territorial marker, or something more inscrutable like a Neolithic computer designed to calculate celestial events? Perhaps the most tantalizing clue lies in the land itself. The alignments don't just point skyward, they mirror the surrounding topography, with certain rows leading to ancient springs or burial mounds. This interplay between Earth and cosmos hints at a world view where the landscape was alive, its rhythms tied to the movements of the heavens. Walking among these stones today, you don't just see a monument, you feel the weight of a lost language, one written not in words but in rock and shadow. And until we decipher it, Karnak will remain a riddle wrapped in granite, waiting for the right key to turn. Rising from Malta's sun-baked limestone plateaus, the ancient temples of Haga Kim and Emnajdra aren't just ruins. They're time capsules of a civilization so advanced their engineering defies the timeline of human progress. Built over 5,000 years ago, these megalithic structures predate Stonehenge by a millennium and the pyramids of Giza by at least 500 years. But what truly stuns archaeologists isn't just their age, it's the sophistication of their design. The temple's curved facades, intricate altars, and elliptical chambers were crafted from Globigerina limestone, a soft rock that should have crumbled to dust under Mediterranean storms. Yet here they stand, their walls still bearing the faint traces of spiral carvings and pitted decorations, as if the builders knew secrets of preservation lost to history. Walk through the towering entrance of Haga Kim and you'll notice something unsettling. The massive stone blocks fit together with such precision that even the thinnest blade can't slide between them. No mortar, no gaps, just seamless joints that echo the later masonry of the Inca. But how? The Maltese builders had no metal tools, no wheels, not even a written language to blueprint their visions. Some of the slabs weigh over 20 tons, yet they were hauled from quarries miles away and lifted into place with a system of ropes, ramps, and sheer ingenuity that modern engineers struggle to replicate. Even the doorways tell a story. The main entrance aligns perfectly with the summer solstice sunrise, flooding the inner chamber with a blade of light that illuminates a carved altar stone, a celestial effect too precise to be accidental. Then there's Emnajdra, just a kilometer downhill where the mystery deepens. This temple complex isn't just one structure but three, each nested like concentric shells, their apses aligned to different astronomical events. The lower temple's rear niche captures the equinox sunrise, while the winter solstice paints a dagger of light across a stone slab adorned with cup marks, perhaps an ancient counting system or star map. The builders didn't just observe the heavens, they encoded their knowledge into stone, creating a permanent dialogue between architecture and the cosmos. But the real enigma lies in the people behind these temples. The so-called temple culture flourished for over 1,000 years, then vanished without warning around 2500 BC. No evidence of war, famine, or invasion explains their disappearance, just empty islands and these silent stone sentinels. Worse, they left no skeletons, no weapons, no pottery shards that might hint at daily life. Only a handful of corpulent figurines, dubbed fat ladies, offer clues to their beliefs, suggesting a goddess-worshipping society that revered fertility or abundance. Some researchers speculate they overfarmed the land, triggering ecological collapse. Others point to seismic activity or a sudden pandemic. The more radical theories whisper of a cult like mass exodus, a people who simply walked into the sea, leaving their temples as tombstones. What makes Malta's temples uniquely haunting isn't just their unanswered questions, it's the lingering sense of intimacy. Unlike Egypt's pyramids or Mesopotamia's ziggurats, these weren't monuments to dead kings but communal spaces. The acoustics inside certain chambers amplify whispers into eerie echoes, hinting at rituals where voice and sound bridge the human and divine. Hidden niches and oracle holes suggest ceremonies where priests or shamans communicated with unseen forces. Even the floors tell stories, grooved channels that may have carried libations or blood sacrifices, though no traces remain. Modern technology only deepens the puzzle. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed subterranean chambers beneath some temples, still unexplored, while 3D scans show tool marks so fine they could only have been made with specialized implements, perhaps lost to time or deliberately destroyed. The temple's alignment with the constellation Orion, a pattern shared with Giza and other ancient sites, fuels speculation about a shared global culture or extraterrestrial influence. But the truth might be simpler and far more profound. A civilization that saw the universe as an interconnected web, where stone and sky were partners in a dance we've forgotten how to hear. Standing in these temples today, you don't just witness ancient engineering, you feel the weight of a riddle carved in limestone. These stones don't just challenge our timeline of human achievement, they whisper that history might be missing entire chapters written by hands we've yet to name. And until we do, the temples will keep their secrets, bathed in the same solstice light that first guided their builders millennia ago. Stretching across the border between Senegal and the Gambia, the Senegambian stone circles stand in quiet defiance of time, a sprawling network of over 1,000 megaliths arranged in perfect rings, some as tall as 10 feet, others weathered down to mere stumps. These aren't randomly placed boulders. Each circle is meticulously constructed with laterite pillars, their reddish hue blending into the African savanna like echoes of a forgotten ritual. What's most striking isn't just their scale, it's the silence that surrounds them. Unlike Egypt's pyramids or Mesopotamia's ziggurats, these circles have no inscriptions, no murals, no buried treasures to hint at their purpose. The people who built them left nothing behind but the stones themselves, and that's where the mystery deepens. Radiocarbon dating places these circles between the 3rd century BCE and the 16th century CE, a staggering time frame that spans empires, migrations, and cultural shifts, yet the construction style remains eerily consistent. Each ring follows the same blueprint, 10 to 24 stones evenly spaced with a precision that suggests more than mere burial markers or territorial symbols. Some researchers believe they were astronomical calendars, aligned to solstices or lunar cycles, while others argue they were sacred spaces for initiation rites or communal gatherings. Then there's the haunting possibility that they're funerary monuments. Excavations have revealed human remains near a few circles, but with no clear pattern. Some burials are elaborate with pottery and jewelry, while others are stark and solitary. Were these circles tombs for the elite, or memorials for ancestors whose names were lost to the wind? The stones raise even more questions when you consider how they were moved. Laterite is notoriously heavy and brittle, yet these pillars were quarried from pits miles away, then shaped and transported without wheels or domesticated animals. Local oral traditions speak of a legendary people, the Sos, who could soften stone with herbal concoctions, a tantalizing clue but one that modern science can't corroborate. Even more puzzling is the lack of nearby settlements. Where did the builders live? Why invest such effort in a landscape seemingly devoid of villages or crops? Some theorists suggest the circles were pilgrimage sites, drawing scattered nomadic groups for seasonal ceremonies, while others propose they marked trade routes or sacred groundwater sources. What makes the Senegambian circles uniquely haunting is their resistance to categorization. They don't fit neatly into any known cultural framework, not the Ghana Empire, not the Mali Kingdom, not even the earlier Tichit tradition. It's as if the builders deliberately erased themselves from history, leaving only these silent sentinels as clues. Modern attempts to preserve the site have only deepened the intrigue. When UNESCO designated it a World Heritage Site in 2006, they noted something peculiar. The stones aren't just placed there planted, with their tapered ends buried deep in the earth like roots. Was this a symbolic gesture, a way to tether the ancestors to the land? Or a practical solution to stabilize the pillars against erosion? Perhaps the most poignant detail is the way local communities interact with the circles today. In a region where oral history is sacred, the stones are still treated with reverence. Elders speak of them as living entities, whispering warnings or blessings to those who listen closely. Rituals are performed there, though no one can say if they mirror the original ceremonies. This isn't just archaeology, it's a dialogue between past and present, where the stones serve as both monument and mystery. What lingers isn't just the question of who built them, but why they chose to speak in a language of stone rather than words. In a world obsessed with leaving records, these circles are a rare enigma, a civilization that measured its legacy not in gold or scriptures, but in the weight of silent rock. And that silence might be the most profound message of all. In the heart of Mexico's ancient city of Cholula, 4 stone sentinels stand atop a pyramid, their hollow eyes staring across centuries. These towering figures, known as the Atlantean warriors, are among the most enigmatic relics of the Toltec civilization, looming nearly 15 feet tall, carved from solid basalt, and dressed in intricate regalia that hints at a world long forgotten. But what's most striking isn't just their imposing presence, it's the unanswered questions they carry. Who do they represent, gods, kings, or something far more mysterious? And why, after centuries of study, do these statues still defy consensus? The warrior's attire alone is a riddle. Each figure wears a feathered headdress, a butterfly-shaped pectoral, and a curved weapon resembling an atlatl, a spear-throwing device. These details suggest they might depict Toltec warriors or elite protectors, yet their rigid posture and geometric precision feel almost otherworldly. Some scholars argue they're representations of the god King Topoltzin-Quetzalcoatl, a semi-mythical ruler said to have vanished across the eastern sea with a promise to return. Others see them as celestial guardians, their outspread wings symbolizing a bridge between earth and sky. The truth is obscured by time. The Toltecs left no written records, only these stone enigmas. Then there's the puzzle of their construction. Basalt, the volcanic rock used for the statues, is notoriously difficult to carve, yet the warriors' details from the intricate belts to the coiled serpents at their backs are rendered with astonishing precision. Even more baffling is how they were transported. The nearest basalt quarries lie miles away, and without wheels or draft animals, moving these multi-ton monoliths would have required an army of laborers or a lost technology. Local legends claim the statues walked into place, guided by divine will, a poetic nod to the Toltecs' reputation as master builders and mythmakers, but the greatest debate swirls around their purpose. The pyramid they crown, Temple B, was once the heart of Cholula's ceremonial center. Were the warriors meant to intimidate enemies, their stone gaze warding off invaders? Or were they part of a grander cosmological design? Recent discoveries of aligned platforms suggest the statues might have served as astronomical markers, their positions tracking solstices or Venus's cyclical appearances. The most haunting theory comes from the Aztecs, who revered the Toltecs as cultural ancestors. Aztec codices describe Cholula's fall in apocalyptic terms: fires, chaos, and statues that wept blood before the city was abandoned. Could these warriors be memorials to that collapse, frozen in stone as a warning? What lingers isn't just the mystery of their identity, but the weight of their silence. Unlike Egypt's sphinxes or Greece's Kuroi, these statues offer no inscriptions, no clear lineage. They stand as both monument and riddle, a testament to a civilization that shaped empires yet left its deepest stories untold. To stand before them is to feel the pull of a past that refuses to be solved, only witnessed, and perhaps that's the point. Some secrets aren't meant to be carved in words, but in the quiet endurance of stone. Perched high above the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman isn't just a wall, it's a masterclass in stonework that defies logic. These zigzagging ramparts, built from massive limestone blocks, some weighing over 120 tons, fit together with such precision that not even a sheet of paper can slip between them. The curves and angles of each stone interlock like pieces of an intricate puzzle, creating a seamless, earthquake-resistant structure that has endured for centuries. But here's what baffles engineers. The Inca, with no known metal tools or mortar, achieved this perfection using nothing but stone hammers, bronze chisels, and an uncanny understanding of geometry. Walk along these serpentine walls and you'll notice something even more astonishing. The largest stones aren't just stacked, they're sculpted, their edges beveled and surfaces polished to a smoothness that rivals modern machinery. Some boulders have as many as 32 distinct angles, each one custom shaped to match its neighbors with millimeter precision. How did they do it? Traditional explanations suggest the Inca used abrasives like sand and water to grind the stone, but that doesn't account for the speed and scale of construction. Experiments with these methods struggle to replicate the exactitude seen at Sacsayhuaman. The precision is so exact that some theorists argue it could only be achieved with lost technologies, perhaps sonic vibrations or plant-based acids capable of softening rock. Then there's the question of transportation. The limestone was quarried from hills miles away, then hauled uphill to the site. Mainstream archaeology suggests the Inca used log rollers, ramps, and sheer manpower, but the logistics strain belief. Moving a single 100-ton block would require thousands of laborers pulling in unison, yet Spanish chronicles describe a workforce of just 20,000, a fraction of the numbers needed for such a feat. Local legends offer a more mystical explanation. The stones were moved by the power of sound, levitated into place by priests chanting sacred frequencies. While that might sound far-fetched, acoustic studies have shown that certain Andean instruments, like the Pututu conch shell, can produce vibrations that resonate with the stone's crystalline structure. Could there be a kernel of truth buried in the myth? But the real mystery isn't just the how, it's the why. Sacsayhuaman's walls aren't straight, they zigzag like lightning bolts, a design that serves no obvious defensive purpose. Some scholars believe the pattern mimics the teeth of a puma, the sacred animal that symbolized Inca royalty. Others argue the zigzags channeled water during rainstorms, transforming the fortress into a giant hydraulic system. The most compelling theory, though, ties the walls to astronomy. The angles align with solstice sunrises and the Pleiades star cluster, suggesting Sacsayhuaman wasn't just a fortress, it was a cosmic temple, its stones calibrated to the heavens. What lingers isn't just admiration for the engineering, but the unsettling realization that we've underestimated the Inca. These walls weren't built by primitive stonemasons. They were crafted by visionaries who saw stone not as an obstacle, but as a medium for both art and science. Every joint, every curve whispers of a knowledge that slipped through our fingers, and as long as those perfect seams remain unbroken, Sacsayhuaman will keep its secrets, waiting for the day we might finally understand the minds behind the masonry. Beneath the golden hills of southeastern Turkey, the stone pillars of Gobekli Tepe don't just rise from the earth, they seem to whisper. Carved with intricate reliefs of scorpions, foxes, and vultures, these towering limestone monoliths tell a story far older than civilization itself. But it's not just their staggering age, roughly 11,600 years old, that captivates researchers. It's the sheer density of symbolism packed into every surface, a visual language so rich it hints at a spiritual world we can barely fathom. Take Pillar 43, dubbed the Vulture Stone. Its surface is a menagerie of carved creatures, a snarling fox, a coiled serpent, and a massive vulture with wings outstretched, hovering over what some interpret as a headless human figure. To modern eyes, it might look like ancient artistry, but archaeologists suspect these images are more than decorative. The vulture, in particular, could hold a chilling significance. Some researchers propose it represents a sky burial, a funerary practice where the dead were left exposed to be cleansed by scavenger birds. If true, this pillar might be the earliest known depiction of a death ritual, a window into how these prehistoric people grappled with mortality. Then there's the puzzling lack of domestic debris. Unlike other ancient sites, Gobekli Tepe shows no signs of permanent settlement, no houses, no hearths, no middens of discarded bones and tools. This wasn't a village, it was something far more elusive. The presence of massive stone troughs, possibly used for brewing beer or ritual feasting, suggests gatherings of nomadic groups who returned here seasonally, drawn by something deeper than survival. The pillars themselves, arranged in concentric circles with two central T-shaped monoliths, might have served as totems or avatars for ancestors or deities. The repetition of animal motifs, lions, bulls, and birds, across multiple pillars hints at a shared mythology, a pantheon of spirits tied to the hunt, the sky, or the underworld. But the most haunting question isn't what these carvings mean, it's who made them. The builders of Gobekli Tepe predated agriculture, pottery, even the wheel. They were hunter-gatherers living in a world where every calorie was hard-won. Yet they invested staggering effort into quarrying, carving, and transporting these pillars, some weighing over 16 tons. Why? The leading theory suggests the site was a religious sanctuary, a place where scattered bands united to worship, trade knowledge, or forge alliances. Yet the scale of labor implies a level of social organization thought impossible for nomadic peoples. Did spiritual fervor drive them to cooperate on a scale that defies modern assumptions? And then, around 8000 BC, Gobekli Tepe was deliberately buried, not abandoned, carefully entombed under thousands of tons of earth, as if sealing away something too potent to leave exposed. Was it a sacred retirement, a way to preserve the site for eternity? Or was it an act of fear, a ritual closing of a chapter that had grown too dangerous to remember? The stones, as always, refuse to say. What lingers isn't just the mystery of their purpose, but the unsettling realization that these pillars rewrite human history. They prove that complex symbolism and communal effort existed long before cities or kings, that spirituality, not survival, might have been the spark that first brought us together. And as archaeologists uncover more of the site's hidden chambers and unexcavated pillars, one truth becomes clear: Gobekli Tepe isn't just a relic. It's a challenge, asking us to reconsider what we think we know about the dawn of human culture and the power of stone to carry secrets across millennia. Beyond the famous Callanish stones, Scotland's rugged landscapes hide dozens of lesser-known stone circles, each with its own celestial secrets. Take the Ring of Brodgar in Orkney, a sprawling ring of 36 weathered megaliths perched on a thin strip of land between two glacial locks. Unlike the geometric precision of Callanish, Brodgar feels wilder, its stones unevenly spaced yet still framing the sky with an eerie accuracy. During the summer solstice, the sun rises directly over the nearby Barnhouse stone, casting a beam that slices through the circle as if marking a doorway between worlds. But Brodgar isn't alone in its cosmic conversation. A few miles south, the stones of Stenness, older than Stonehenge by 1,000 years, form a tighter, more intimate ring. Here, the 4 remaining uprights, originally 12, align with the winter solstice sunset, their slender silhouettes etching black lines against the fiery horizon. What's fascinating isn't just the alignments, it's the diversity of design. At Macri Moor on the Isle of Arran, 6 stone circles dot the peat-rich landscape like abandoned chess pieces. Some are built from towering red sandstone, others from gleaming white quartz. One circle, dubbed Fingal's Cauldron, consists of 11 stones arranged in a near-perfect ellipse with a central monolith that may have served as an altar or observation point. Local legends claim these stones petrified giants mid-dance, but archaeologists suspect a more practical purpose. Pollen samples reveal the area was once farmland, leading some to theorize the circles acted as communal gathering spots for seasonal festivals tied to planting and harvests. Then there's the puzzle of clava cairns near Inverness, a trio of Bronze Age rings unlike any others in Scotland. These circles aren't freestanding, they encircle ancient burial cairns, their stones graded in height so the shortest face northeast and the tallest southwest. At midwinter, the setting sun pours through a gap in the stones, flooding the central cairn with golden light. But here's the twist, the same alignment appears at Balnuaran of Clava's neighboring circles, suggesting a deliberate, repeating pattern. Were these monuments celestial clocks, ensuring the dead could navigate the afterlife by the stars? Or did they serve as ritual stages where the living communed with ancestors under the solstice sun? Theories about these circles span the pragmatic to the paranormal. Some researchers argue they were Neolithic observatories, their alignments encoding lunar and solar cycles with mathematical precision. At Cultoon on Islay, an unfinished circle sits with 3 erected stones and 12 still lying prone, a frozen snapshot of construction that hints at abandoned rituals or shifting beliefs. Elsewhere, dowsers claim certain circles amplify electromagnetic energy, though scientific measurements remain inconclusive. Meanwhile, folklore weaves darker tales. The 9 Maidens of Dartmoor, a distant cousin to Scotland's circles, are said to be petrified witches, while the Lochbuie stone circle on Mull supposedly marks a fairy gathering ground. What unites these sites isn't just their stones, but their resistance to easy answers. Unlike Egypt's pyramids or Greece's temples, Scotland's circles offer no inscriptions, no treasure-filled tombs, just silent arrangements that echo the rhythms of earth and sky. Maybe that's the point. These weren't monuments to kings or gods, but to something more elemental, the turning of seasons, the dance of light and shadow, the human need to mark time in a world where everything else is fleeting. And as the northern wind hums through their gaps, these circles remind us that some languages don't need words, they're written in stone and sunlight, waiting for anyone willing to look up and listen. On the rugged shores of Easter Island, far from the towering moai that dominate the island's silhouette, another set of stone figures lurks in the shadows, smaller, stranger, and infinitely more unsettling. These are the moai cava, skeletal statues carved with sunken eyes, protruding ribs, and gaunt, almost emaciated frames. Unlike their more famous counterparts, these figures depict human forms reduced to bone and sinew, as if frozen in a state between life and death. Their hollowed-out cheeks and exaggerated spinal columns give them an eerie, spectral quality, raising questions that have haunted researchers for centuries. Were these figures meant to honor ancestors, ward off evil, or serve as warnings of some long-forgotten calamity? The most striking detail isn't just their grotesque appearance, it's their stark contrast to the island's other art. The classic moai, with their broad faces and solid bodies, embody strength and presence, while the cava seem to whisper of decay and fragility. Some scholars argue they represent starving ancestors or spirits of the underworld, reflecting Polynesian beliefs in the duality of life and death. Others suggest they depict the work of aku, mischievous spirits said to haunt the island, their skeletal forms a visual reminder of the supernatural lurking just beneath the surface of reality. Then there's the more unsettling theory that the cava were carved during a time of famine, their emaciated bodies serving as desperate pleas to the gods for mercy. The mystery deepens when you examine how these statues were used. Unlike the moai, which stood imposingly on ceremonial platforms, the cava were small enough to be carried, some no taller than a forearm. Many were found tucked away in caves or buried near dwellings, suggesting they held personal rather than communal significance. Ethnographic accounts from early European visitors describe islanders wearing the figures around their necks during rituals, as if channeling the spirits they depicted. Some statues even have holes drilled into their heads, possibly for attaching feathers or fiber hair, blurring the line between object and living entity. Were they talismans, ritual props, or conduits for communication with the dead? But perhaps the most haunting question is why these figures exist at all. Easter Island's culture revolved around abundance, fertility, fishing, and the veneration of robust ancestors. The Kavakava's emaciated forms feel like a stark contradiction, an acknowledgement of something darker lurking beneath the island's idyllic surface. Some researchers point to the island's eventual ecological collapse, wondering if these statues were prophetic, a visual reckoning with the consequences of overexploitation. Others see them as purely symbolic, representing not literal starvation but spiritual asceticism, a shedding of the physical to reach higher realms. The debate over their meaning remains unresolved, much like the island's own enigmatic history. What lingers isn't just the mystery of their purpose, but the way they force us to confront the duality of human existence. The Moai Kavakava don't just depict skeletons, they embody the fragility of life itself, a reminder that even in a culture obsessed with permanence and power, the shadow of mortality was never far away. And in their hollow eyes, we're left to wonder, were these statues warnings, prayers, or mirrors held up to a civilization on the brink? Their silence is their answer. High on the windswept plains of Bolivia, near the shores of Lake Titicaca, the stone walls of Tiwanaku stand as a silent challenge to modern understanding. These massive polygonal blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, fit together with a precision that would make even the Inca architects of Sacsayhuaman pause. Unlike neatly squared bricks, these stones are irregular polygons, each one uniquely shaped with concave and convex edges that interlock like pieces of an ancient three-dimensional puzzle. The joints are so tight that when Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 16th century, they claimed not even a pin could slip between them. Yet the real mystery isn't just the perfection of their fit, it's the question of how a civilization without iron tools or the wheel achieved such flawless craftsmanship. Take a closer look at the stones and the enigma deepens. The surfaces bear faint striations, suggesting they were shaped with tools far more advanced than the simple bronze chisels and stone hammers found at the site. Some blocks feature drill holes with spiraling grooves, as if cut by a rotating bit, a technique that shouldn't have existed in the Andes until centuries later. Even more baffling are the precise angles and curves. Modern engineers have attempted to replicate the cuts using traditional methods, but the results are crude compared to Tiwanaku's seamless joints. This has led to theories ranging from lost technologies, perhaps a form of vitrification that softened the rock, to the use of sonic vibrations or even plant-based acids that could dissolve stone like putty. But the walls aren't just a technical marvel, they're a cosmological statement. The entire complex aligns with celestial events, from solstice sunrises to the cycles of Venus. The famous Gateway of the Sun, carved from a single block of andesite, features intricate carvings of a deity flanked by winged figures, their positions mirroring astronomical constellations. Some researchers believe the walls themselves were part of a giant calendar, their irregular shapes reflecting the wobble of Earth's axis over millennia. Others argue the polygonal design served a practical purpose, earthquake resistance. Like the Inca walls of Cusco, Tiwanaku's interlocking stones could shift during tremors without collapsing, a feat of engineering that kept the city standing for over 1,000 years. The greatest puzzle, though, lies in the stone's origins. The andesite used in the walls was quarried from the Copacabana Peninsula, over 50 miles away across Lake Titicaca. How were these colossal blocks transported without wheels or draft animals? Local legends speak of giants who built the city in a single night, or of a golden reed that made the stones light as feathers. More grounded theories suggest reed boats and log rollers, but experiments with these methods struggle to explain the transportation of the largest monoliths. Even more perplexing is the lack of trial and error. Unlike other ancient sites, Tiwanaku shows no evidence of flawed or abandoned blocks. Every stone was shaped perfectly on the first attempt, as if the builders worked from a master blueprint we've yet to uncover. What lingers isn't just admiration for the craftsmanship, but the uneasy sense that Tiwanaku's builders possessed knowledge that has since vanished. These walls don't just defy the timeline of human innovation, they mock it. Whether the product of forgotten engineering or a civilization far more advanced than history remembers, their silent precision remains a riddle written in stone. And until we decipher their secrets, they'll stand as both monument and mystery, a testament to a world that understood the earth and sky in ways we're still struggling to grasp. The rows of standing stones at Menek stretch across the Breton landscape like the bones of some ancient, sprawling creature, nearly 1,200 megaliths standing in 11 parallel lines that vanish into the horizon. These aren't the clustered circles of Stonehenge or the solitary dolmens found elsewhere in Europe. Menek stones march with military precision, some towering over 13 feet tall, others worn down by millennia of wind and rain to stumps no higher than a knee. What's most striking isn't just their scale, but their purpose. These stones don't just stand, they align, their positions meticulously calibrated to celestial events that would have captivated the people who placed them here over 4,500 years ago. During the summer solstice, the rising sun casts a blade of light directly down the central axis of the Menek alignments, painting the stones gold before stretching their shadows into elongated fingers across the earth. But it's not just the sun they track. Certain rows mirror the moon's most extreme positions in its 18.6-year cycle, a precision that suggests these weren't just markers for seasons, but a sophisticated lunar observatory. Some researchers believe the entire site functioned as a colossal calendar, helping Neolithic farmers predict eclipses or time their harvests. Others argue the stones were part of a sacred processional path where rituals unfolded under the watch of the heavens. The real mystery, though, lies in the hands that built them. Unlike Egypt's pyramids or Rome's Colosseums, Menek's creators left no inscriptions, no burial goods, no trace of their names. The stones themselves offer the only clues. Many were quarried miles away, their transportation a feat that would have required coordinated labor on a staggering scale. Yet there's no evidence of a centralized authority, no king's palace, no storehouses for food to feed the workers. This suggests a society bound not by hierarchy, but by shared belief, where entire communities came together to shape the landscape in service of something greater than themselves. Local legends whisper of Merlin walking these rows, turning a Roman legion to stone for their arrogance, but archaeology paints a more haunting picture. Excavations reveal that the alignments were built in phases, with generations adding to the site over centuries. The consistency of their astronomical alignments implies a sacred knowledge passed down like an unbroken thread, each stone a covenant between the living and the cosmos. Even more intriguing are the buried remains of older post holes beneath the stones, hinting at a wooden precursor to this megalithic masterpiece. Was Menek always meant to be eternal, or did it evolve from something more transient? Walking among these stones today, you don't just see a monument, you feel the weight of a question carved in granite. Why invest such effort in a structure with no obvious practical use? The answer might lie in the land itself. The alignments don't just point skyward, they mirror the contours of the surrounding hills and rivers as if stitching the earth to the heavens. For a people who saw the world as alive, perhaps these stones were a language, a way to speak to the forces that governed their lives. And though we may never fully decipher their message, the stones remain silent witnesses to a time when the sky was a map and stone was the ink. Buried beneath Malta's sun-scorched earth, the Toxian temples emerge like a fever dream carved in stone, a labyrinth of massive slabs, curved chambers, and spiral reliefs so precise they seem to pulse with hidden meaning. These four interconnected structures, built between 3600 and 2500 BCE, are the most elaborate of Malta's prehistoric temple complexes, yet their purpose remains one of archaeology's most tantalizing riddles. Step inside and you're immediately struck by the walls, towering blocks of coralline limestone etched with dizzying spirals, zigzags, and animal figures that twist and coil as if alive. But what's truly unsettling isn't just the artistry, it's the way these symbols resist interpretation. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs or Mesopotamian cuneiform, the carvings at Tarxian offer no Rosetta Stone, no bilingual inscription to crack their code. They're a language without a key, whispering secrets we're left to guess at. Take the famous spiral altar, a massive stone slab covered in concentric circles that radiate outward like ripples in water. To some researchers, these spirals represent the cyclical nature of life and death, a visual metaphor for rebirth. Others see them as maps of celestial movements, tracing the paths of stars or planetary cycles. Then there's the more visceral theory that they depict trance visions, the hallucinatory patterns seen by shamans during rituals. The truth might lie in the temple's acoustics. Certain chambers amplify sound eerily well, and experiments with replica drums suggest the spirals could be visual echoes of rhythmic vibrations, a marriage of art and resonance meant to induce altered states. But the carvings aren't the only enigma. Scattered throughout the site are fragments of colossal statues, their lower halves still rooted to the floor like shattered sentinels. One such figure, dubbed the Fat Lady, towers over 6 feet tall, her pleated skirt and swollen thighs suggesting a deity of fertility or abundance. Yet her head and arms are missing, deliberately broken, some argue, during a violent shift in beliefs. Nearby, a stone block carved with bull motifs fuels speculation about sacrificial rites, while a niche lined with oracle holes hints at divination practices. The temple's layout deepens the mystery. Unlike later symmetrical shrines, Tarxian's chambers unfold in cloverleaf patterns, their curved walls mimicking the contours of Neolithic goddess figurines found across Europe. Were these temples womb-like sanctuaries designed to channel the energy of a mother goddess, or something darker? The debate over Tarxian's function splits scholars into opposing camps. One side insists it was a religious complex, a pilgrimage site where scattered islanders gathered for seasonal ceremonies. The abundance of animal bones and altars suggests feasting or offerings, while the temple's alignment with solstice sunrises points to celestial worship. Opponents counter that the site's scale and complexity imply a political role, a centralized hub where chieftains displayed power through monumental architecture. Then there's the fringe theory that Tarxian was an ancient healing center. The discovery of herb residues and obsidian blades near the altars raises the possibility of early surgeries or medicinal rituals, though no human remains confirm this. Perhaps the most haunting clue lies in the temple's abrupt abandonment. Around 2500 BC, the Tarxian culture vanished, leaving behind half-finished carvings and tools dropped mid-use. The temples were carefully sealed with rubble, as if hiding them from some impending threat. Was it invasion, environmental collapse, or a spiritual reckoning that turned the people against their old gods? The stones won't say. What lingers today isn't just the puzzle of their purpose, but the unsettling beauty of their craftsmanship. These temples weren't just built, they were composed, every spiral and statue a note in a symphony we've forgotten how to hear. To walk through Tarxian is to feel the weight of a lost dialogue, one where stone wasn't just a canvas, but a living participant in the conversation. And until we learn its language, the temples will keep their secrets, locked in limestone and time. Hidden deep in the misty highlands of Colombia, the towering stone statues of San Agustin guard secrets older than the Inca, the Maya, even the pyramids of Egypt. These enigmatic figures, some grinning, some snarling, others clutching infants or clutching weapons, stand sentinel over a sprawling necropolis of tombs and terraces, their expressions frozen in an eternal dialogue with the unseen. Carved from volcanic rock between the 1st and 8th centuries, these statues aren't just art. They're a visceral window into a civilization that left no written records, only these silent stone messengers. What strikes you first is their sheer diversity. Over 500 statues dot the region, each one unique. Some depict warriors with jaguar-like fangs, their hands gripping clubs or severed heads. Others show hybrid creatures, half human, half bird, or figures with serpents coiled around their bodies. The most haunting are the double self statues, where a second face emerges from the mouth or chest of the primary figure, as if capturing the moment of spiritual transformation. This isn't mere decoration, it's a coded language, one that scholars believe reflects shamanic journeys between worlds. The jaguar motifs, ubiquitous in San Agustin carvings, reinforce this theory. In many indigenous Amazonian cultures, jaguars symbolize shamans' ability to traverse the spirit realm, their fearsome strength a metaphor for spiritual power. But the mystery runs deeper than symbolism. Many statues cluster around ceremonial tombs, their bases embedded with offerings, ceramic vessels, gold ornaments, even the bones of infants. Archaeologists suspect these weren't just grave markers but active participants in rituals, perhaps conduits for communicating with ancestors. At the site of Fuente de Lavapotas, the artistry takes an even eerier turn. Here, a natural stream has been sculpted into a labyrinth of pools and channels, their walls carved with faces that seem to writhe beneath the flowing water. Local guides whisper that the site was used for hydrotherapeutic rites or hallucinogenic ceremonies, the water's murmur merging with chants to summon visions. The biggest enigma: we don't know who built them. The San Agustin culture vanished centuries before the Spanish arrived, leaving no oral traditions or descendant communities to decipher their legacy. Even the statue's preservation defies logic. Unlike Egypt's desert mummified relics, these stones endured Colombia's torrential rains and humidity, their pigments and details mysteriously intact. Some researchers point to a resin coating derived from local plants, a lost technique for sealing stone against erosion. Others argue the statues were deliberately buried between rituals, shielded from the elements by the earth itself. Theories about their creators range from the scholarly to the speculative. Mainstream archaeology suggests they were the work of a hierarchical theocracy, where priest-kings commissioned these monuments to legitimize their rule. Yet the absence of grand palaces or storehouses undermines this idea. More radical proposals link the statues to the legendary Chibcha gold cultures, or even to seafaring Polynesians, citing stylistic echoes of Pacific Island carvings. Then there's the indigenous Muisca people's belief that the statues are Mui, ancient protectors who awaken during eclipses to patrol the land. Walking among these statues today, you don't just see artifacts, you feel a presence. The way their eyes follow you, the way their mouths twist into smiles or snarls depending on the angle of sunlight, suggests an artistry meant to interact with the living. Whether guardians, spirit guides, or portraits of the dead, the stones of San Agustin refuse to be mere relics. They're a bridge to a worldview where stone wasn't inert but alive, a canvas for the unseen forces that shaped their makers' lives. And until we learn to hear their language, their truths will remain etched in rock, waiting for the day the code is cracked. Avebury's stone circle doesn't just command the landscape, it swallows it whole. Unlike Stonehenge's compact ring of towering sarcens, Avebury sprawls across 28 acres, its massive stones forming concentric rings around an entire English village. Built roughly 4,500 years ago, this is the largest megalithic stone circle in Europe, a monument so vast that early visitors assumed it must have been the work of giants. Walking among these weathered monoliths, some weighing over 40 tons, you don't just see ancient history, you feel its weight, its presence, as if the stones themselves are listening. The scale of Avebury's construction borders on the incomprehensible. Over 600 stones once stood here, though only 76 remain today. The outer circle alone originally boasted 98 megaliths, each one dragged from the Marlborough Downs miles away and erected with a precision that defies the primitive tools of the Neolithic era. The logistics boggle the mind. How did a society without wheels or draft animals coordinate the transport and placement of such colossal rocks? Some researchers suggest teams of laborers used wooden sledges and rollers, leveraging the area's natural slopes to maneuver the stones. Others point to the discovery of antler picks and shoulder blades used as shovels, tools that hint at a communal effort spanning generations. But the most tantalizing clue lies in the stones themselves. Unlike Stonehenge's uniform pillars, Baalbek's megaliths are raw and unshaped, their surfaces pocked with natural hollows and grooves, yet their placement is anything but random. The circle's southern entrance aligns with the midwinter sunset, while the northern gateway frames the rising summer solstice sun, a celestial choreography etched into the earth. What was Baalbek for? The theories are as layered as the landscape. The most widely accepted view casts it as a ceremonial hub, a sacred space where Neolithic people gathered for rituals tied to the cycles of life and death. Excavations have uncovered human remains, animal bones, and pottery fragments, suggesting feasts or offerings to ancestors. The nearby Silbury Hill, Europe's largest prehistoric mound, reinforces this idea, its construction mirroring Baalbek's timeline, as if both sites were part of a grand spiritual complex. But other interpretations veer into the speculative. The 18th century antiquarian William Stukeley believed Baalbek was a temple to a serpentine earth goddess, its winding ditches and avenues forming a cosmic serpent swallowing the sun. Modern dowsers claim the stones sit atop ley lines, channels of earth energy that amplify their power. Even the village's later history adds to the mystique. Medieval farmers, fearing the stones as pagan relics, toppled and buried many only for modern archaeologists to find them perfectly preserved beneath centuries of soil, as if the earth itself refused to let them fade. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of Baalbek isn't its size or its alignments, but the way it refuses to fit neatly into any narrative. Unlike Stonehenge, which feels like a monument to human ingenuity, Baalbek is something wilder, a conversation between stone and sky, between the living and the dead. Its builders left no written records, no carvings, no clear trail of their beliefs. Only the stones remain, standing silent guard over secrets we're left to piece together from whispers in the wind. And as the sun sets over the circle, casting long shadows across the grass, you can't help but wonder if that's exactly how they wanted it. High in Peru's sacred valley, the stone walls of Ollantaytambo rise like a challenge carved into the mountain-side, massive, geometric, and defying every assumption about ancient engineering. These aren't just blocks, they're titanic slabs of rose rhyolite, some weighing over 50 tons, fitted together with joints so precise they seem welded rather than stacked. Each stone is a puzzle piece, its edges beveled and surfaces polished to a smoothness that glows under the Andean sun. But the real mystery isn't just how they were shaped, it's how they got here. The quarries that birthed these monoliths lie across the valley, 6 kilometers away, separated by the raging Yorubamba River and terrain so steep even modern machinery balks at the climb. So how did the Inca, or perhaps an even older civilization, move these stones without wheels, draft animals, or even a written language to blueprint their ambition? Theories range from the pragmatic to the fantastical. Some archaeologists point to the intricate system of ramps and sledges found near the site, suggesting teams of laborers hauled the stones using ropes made from woven grass and log rollers. But experiments with these methods reveal a glaring problem: the sheer incline. Ollantaytambo sits nearly 300 meters above the river, with slopes so sheer that dragging a multi-ton block up them would require thousands of workers pulling in perfect unison, a feat of coordination that strains credibility. This has led to more radical hypotheses. Local legends speak of Waka's ancestral spirits who could soften stone with sacred plants or sonic vibrations. Though dismissed by mainstream science, the idea isn't entirely baseless. Geologists have noted peculiar vitrification marks on some stones, a glass-like sheen that suggests exposure to extreme heat, possibly from some lost technique we've yet to uncover. Then there's the question of purpose. Unlike most Inca sites, Ollantaytambo's walls aren't just functional, they're symbolic. The arrangement of stones mirrors the surrounding mountain peaks, with certain blocks aligned to capture the first rays of the winter solstice. The famed Wall of the Six Monoliths, with its towering, perfectly spaced pillars, frames the sunset during the December solstice, painting the stones in molten gold. Some researchers argue the site was a fortress. Its strategic position and sheer scale certainly support that, but the absence of battle damage or weapon stores casts doubt. Others believe it was a ceremonial center, its terraces acting as a stage for rituals that honored the mountains as living deities, the most provocative theory. That Ollantaytambo was never finished. The scattered stones littering the quarries and transport routes suggest work was abruptly abandoned, possibly due to the Spanish conquest or a seismic shift in priorities. What lingers isn't just the question of how or why, but the unsettling precision of the craftsmanship. The stones aren't just stacked, they're knit, their irregular shapes interlocking in ways that make them virtually earthquake-proof. Modern engineers have tried to replicate the technique, only to fail spectacularly. The Inca, it seems, understood something about stone we've yet to relearn. Perhaps the answer lies not in the tools they used, but in the worldview behind them, a culture that saw stone not as dead matter, but as a partner in creation. Standing before these walls, you don't just see ancient architecture. You feel the weight of a dialogue between human hands and the bones of the earth, a conversation that continues long after the builders' voices have faded. Scattered across the volcanic islands of Polynesia, from the lush valleys of Tahiti to the remote cliffs of the Marquesas, the stone tiki figures stand as silent guardians of a forgotten past. These enigmatic statues, some towering over 10 feet tall, others small enough to cradle in your arms, share a hauntingly similar design. Broad faces with wide, staring eyes, hands resting on distended bellies, and mouths frozen in expressions that could be smiles or snarls. But what's most unsettling isn't their appearance, it's the unanswered question pulsing behind those hollow eyes. Who carved them, and why do these figures appear across thousands of miles of ocean, on islands separated by cultures that supposedly had no contact? The tiki's origins are as murky as the depths between the islands. Most statues date between the 13th and 18th centuries, yet oral traditions suggest they might be far older. Physical representations of deified ancestors or even the first humans born from the earth. On Rapa Nui, the same people who carved the moai also created smaller tiki figures, linking them to the Polynesian belief in mana, a spiritual force that could inhabit both living beings and stone. But the connection goes deeper. In the Marquesas, tikis often mark sacred sites called mei, where rituals honored ancestors believed to intercede with the gods. The statues weren't just art, they were conduits, their open mouths symbolizing the ability to speak between worlds. Yet the stones resist easy interpretation. Unlike Easter Island's moai, which face inland to watch over villages, many tikis stare outward toward the sea, a detail that sparked theories about their role as navigational markers or warnings to approaching voyagers. Some researchers point to the statue's anatomical exaggerations. The oversized hands, often cradling the stomach, might symbolize fertility or abundance, while the prominent genitalia on some figures suggest rituals tied to procreation or harvest. Then there's the darker side. On Fiji, similar figures were said to house the spirits of vanquished enemies, their captured energy repurposed to protect the tribe. The mystery thickens when you consider how these carvings spread. Polynesia's islands span an area larger than Europe, yet the tiki motif appears with remarkable consistency. Was this pure coincidence or evidence of a shared cultural memory stretching back to the Lapita people, the ancient seafarers who first settled these islands? Modern experiments with replica canoes have proven that long-distance voyaging was possible, but the logistics of transporting stone carving traditions across such vast distances boggle the mind. Even more puzzling is the absence of tools. Few chisels or hammers have been found near Tepe sites, raising the possibility that the carvers used perishable materials like shark teeth or hardened coral, tools that returned to the sea long ago. Perhaps the most compelling clue lies in the statue's impermanence. Many tikis were deliberately toppled or buried during the 19th century when Christian missionaries condemned them as pagan idols. But local elders tell a different story. In Tahiti, legends say some tikis walked into the jungle at night to convene with spirits, only to crumble at dawn when their power waned. Others whisper that the statues weren't destroyed, they were hidden, waiting for a time when their meaning might be understood anew. Today, the tiki's legacy lives in paradox. Tourist shops sell mass-produced replicas, while archaeologists struggle to preserve the originals from erosion and looters. Yet even in fragments, these stones hold power. To stand before an ancient tiki is to feel the weight of a civilization that saw no divide between the material and the spiritual, where rock could breathe and ancestors spoke through hands carved in stone. Whether guardians, warnings, or vessels for voices we can no longer hear, they remained silent sentinels of a world where the line between myth and history was written not on paper, but in the unyielding language of lava and time. The silent parade of stones at Labyrinths stretches across the Breton countryside like a frozen army, 11 rows of nearly 1,200 megaliths advancing in eerie unison toward some forgotten horizon. Unlike the clustered circles of Stonehenge or the solitary dolmens scattered through Europe, these stones march with disciplined precision, some standing over 13 feet tall while others have been worn down by millennia of wind and rain into weathered stumps. But what's most striking isn't just their sheer number, it's the uncanny way they mirror the cosmos. During the summer solstice, the rising sun aligns perfectly with the central axis of the rows, casting elongated shadows that ripple across the landscape like the teeth of a celestial comb. The astronomical significance of Labyrinth runs deeper than solstice markers. Certain rows correspond to the moon's most extreme positions in its 18.6-year cycle, a level of precision that suggests Neolithic observers tracked lunar movements with astonishing accuracy. The westernmost stones at Camarillo, for example, frame the setting moon during its southernmost standstill, an event that only occurs once every generation. Were these alignments a colossal calendar, helping farming communities predict planting seasons or eclipses? Or did they serve as a ritual pathway where processions moved in tandem with the heavens, weaving human ceremony into the fabric of the cosmos? The stones themselves deepen the mystery. Many were quarried from granite outcrops miles away, then transported without wheels or pulley systems. Experiments using Neolithic techniques, log rollers, hemp ropes, and earthen ramps reveal that moving even a single mid-sized stone would require hundreds of laborers working in perfect harmony. Yet there's no evidence of a centralized authority, no nearby settlements large enough to command such an army of workers, no storehouses for surplus grain to feed them. This implies a society bound not by coercion, but by shared belief, a culture willing to dedicate generations to a project whose purpose may have been as much spiritual as practical. Local legends offer cryptic hints. Folklore speaks of the stones as petrified Roman soldiers, turned to rock by the wizard Merlin for their arrogance. Another tale claims they're the remnants of a cursed wedding party, frozen mid-celebration for dancing on the Sabbath, but archaeology paints a quieter story. Post holes discovered beneath some megaliths suggest the alignments may have begun as timber structures, later replaced with stone, as if the builders sought permanence for a tradition already ancient when the first monoliths were raised. What truly unsettles, though, is the silence of the builders. Unlike Egypt's pyramid inscriptions or Mesopotamian clay tablets, Lamennec's creators left no glyphs, no carvings, no tangible clues to their identity. The stones stand as their only testament, a language without a key. New technologies have peeled back layers of the mystery. LiDAR scans reveal buried stones and hidden avenues, but each discovery only multiplies the questions. Why do some rows curve inward like embracing arms? Why were certain stones deliberately toppled and rearranged centuries after their placement? Perhaps the answer lies not in the stones themselves, but in the land they inhabit. The alignments don't just point skyward, they mirror the contours of the local rivers and hills, as if stitching earth and heavens together. For the Neolithic mind, the landscape may have been alive, its rhythms tied to the movements of the moon and sun. In this light, Lamenek isn't just an observatory or temple, it's a living map, a dialogue between human hands and the forces that shaped their world. Standing among these stones at dawn, when the mist clings to their bases like spectral breath, you don't just see a monument, you feel the weight of a question carved in granite. The alignments don't ask to be solved, they ask to be witnessed, to remind us that some civilizations measure their legacy not in gold or conquests, but in the patience to watch the stars and the courage to build their vision where earth meets sky. Rising from Malta's sun-baked cliffs like a mirage carved in limestone, the temples of Haga Kim defy both time and expectation. These prehistoric structures, older than the pyramids of Giza by half a millennium, aren't just ancient, they're alarmingly sophisticated. What sets them apart isn't merely their age, but the way they fuse architecture with astronomy in ways that still leave archaeologists breathless. Step inside the temple's elliptical chambers, and you'll immediately notice the precision of the stonework. Massive blocks fitted together without mortar, their curved walls tapering inward to form ceilings that have weathered 5,000 years of Mediterranean storms. But the real magic happens at dawn on the summer solstice, when sunlight pierces through a carefully carved oracle hole, slicing through the temple's shadowed interior to illuminate a specific altar slab. This isn't random, it's a celestial clock etched in stone, a testament to builders who mapped the heavens with naked eye accuracy. The sophistication of these alignments goes far beyond a single solstice. The temple's southern facade aligns with the rising sun during the June solstice, while the winter solstice sunrise frames the entrance of the nearby Najdra temple complex just downhill. Even more remarkably, the builders accounted for subtle shifts in Earth's axis over millennia. When researchers recalculated the temple's original alignment using ancient star charts, they discovered the solar events would have been even more precisely framed when the temples were built, proof that these weren't rough approximations, but meticulously calibrated observations. Some chambers even feature pitted stones that may have served as primitive calendars, tracking lunar phases or eclipse cycles. Yet the temple's engineering is just as baffling as their astronomy. The builders used Globigerina limestone, a soft rock that should have crumbled under centuries of exposure. Instead, the walls still bear intricate spiral carvings and pitted decorations, their preservation hinting at lost techniques, perhaps a mineral coating or deliberate orientation to shield against prevailing winds. The scale of construction strains belief. The largest stone at Haga Kim weighs over 20 tons, quarried from cliffs nearly 2 miles away and transported without wheels or metal tools. Local folklore claims giants built the temples, but the truth may be even more intriguing. Recent experiments suggest the Maltese might have used spherical stone rollers and lever systems, combining physics with raw manpower in ways modern engineers are only beginning to understand. Then there's the haunting silence of the builders themselves. The temple culture that created Haga Kim flourished for over 1,000 years, then vanished without warning around 2500 BC. No evidence of war, famine, or invasion explains their disappearance, just empty islands and these enigmatic structures. The few clues left behind deepen the mystery. Excavations have uncovered corpulent figurines, possibly goddess idols, and intricate animal carvings, but no written records or even human remains. Some theorists propose catastrophic climate change drained their resources, while others point to a spiritual crisis, a collapse of the belief system that drove them to build these celestial sanctuaries in the first place. What lingers isn't just the question of how they built these temples, but why. Unlike Egypt's pyramid tombs or Mesopotamia's ziggurats, Hagar Kim lacks clear signs of hierarchy, no royal burials, no storerooms for tribute. This suggests a society where communal ritual took precedence over individual power. The temple's acoustics amplify whispers into eerie echoes, hinting at ceremonies where sound itself bridged the human and divine. Hidden niches and oracle holes might have allowed priests to stage supernatural voices, while the solstice alignments transformed the structures into theaters of light and shadow. Standing in these temples today, you're left with an unsettling thought. These builders mastered celestial mechanics and stone engineering millennia before Newton or Michelangelo, then vanished without a trace. Their legacy isn't in gold or conquests, but in limestone and sunlight, a language of rock and sky we're still learning to read. And as the next solstice dawn approaches, the stones wait, ready to replay an ancient light show for anyone patient enough to watch. Buried up to their necks in the volcanic soil of Easter Island, the unfinished moai of Rano-Raraku feel like a film paused mid-scene. Hundreds of stone giants frozen in various stages of creation, their hollow eyes staring blankly from the quarry walls. This is where the island's iconic statues were born, carved directly from the soft tuff of the crater's slopes. But what chills the blood isn't their sheer number, it's the abruptness of their abandonment. Chisels litter the ground as if dropped yesterday. Half-carved figures cling to bedrock, their outlines barely emerging from the stone. The largest, nicknamed El Gigant, lies unfinished at 65 feet tall, a sleeping colossus that would have dwarfed every other moai on the island. Why did the Rapa Nui walk away from their life's work, leaving tools scattered and dreams half-revealed? Theories about this sudden halt spiral from the pragmatic to the apocalyptic. The traditional narrative blames ecological collapse, a society so obsessed with statue production that they deforested their own island, triggering erosion, crop failure, and starvation. Pollen studies support this, showing a dramatic decline in tree species like the extinct Easter Island palm. Without timber for sledges or ropes, moving moai became impossible. But newer research complicates the story. Soil analyses reveal that the Rapa Nui practiced innovative rock gardening to grow crops in barren soil, suggesting adaptability rather than blind folly. Some statues were still being erected as late as the 18th century, long after the supposed collapse. Then there's the darker possibility, societal upheaval. Oral histories speak of a violent shift from ancestor worship to the Birdman cult, where power shifted from statue-building elites to warriors who competed in deadly cliffside races to retrieve seabird eggs. The toppled moai near the quarry, their faces smashed against the earth, hint at iconoclasm, a deliberate rejection of the old gods. Even the statues themselves bear clues. Many unfinished moai have carved petroglyphs on their backs, hidden from view until recently by centuries of soil. These intricate designs, whales, crescent moons, and comrie stylized female genitalia, suggest a cultural pivot where the act of carving may have become more sacred than the finished product. But the quarry's deepest mystery lies in the statues no one talks about, the ones that don't fit. Among the classic moai are bizarre variants, figures kneeling as if in prayer, others with elongated bodies resembling fish or reptiles. Most haunting is Tukuchari, the lone moai carved from red scoria, its stunted form crouching in a seated position with its hands resting on its thighs. Unlike its peers, it faces the quarry, not the sea. Some believe it depicts a mourning ancestor watching over the abandoned workshop. Others argue it's a hasty final tribute, carved when resources ran too low for traditional statues. The truth may be simpler and sadder. Recent excavations reveal that Rano-Raraku wasn't just a quarry, it was a sacred landscape where the act of carving itself was a form of worship. The unfinished moai weren't failures, they were eternal works in progress, meant to remain forever emerging from the earth, symbols of a dialogue between the living and the stone. When Europeans arrived in the 18th century, they found the Rapa Nui still visiting the site, singing to the statues as if they were sleeping relatives. Perhaps the real collapse wasn't ecological or political but spiritual, a quiet acknowledgement that some conversations with the divine are meant to remain unfinished. Standing among these half-born giants today, you don't just see abandoned art. You witness the moment a civilization paused mid-sentence, leaving its last words carved in rock, waiting for a future that might never come to listen. From the hammer sealed in 100-million-year-old rock to the celestial dance of Karnak's megaliths, these 50 ancient stones aren't just relics, they're upheavals. Each one stands as a crack in the foundation of history, whispering that our timeline might be missing chapters, that civilizations we've never named once moved mountains with forgotten tools, or perhaps with knowledge we've yet to rediscover. Think of the precision-cut andesite at Puma Punku, where 16th-century drill holes spiral with machine-like perfection, or the vitrified stones of Sacsayhuaman, fused so seamlessly they've shrugged off centuries of earthquakes. These aren't just engineering marvels, they're provocations, daring us to question what we think we know about humanity's past. What unites them isn't just mystery, but the uncomfortable questions they force us to confront. Were the Olmec colossal heads portraits of kings or giants? Did the builders of Gobekli Tepe bury their temple to preserve it or to hide something? When you piece together the fragments, the astronomical alignments, the impossible logistics, the eerie similarities between cultures separated by oceans, it's hard not to wonder if we're seeing flashes of a lost global knowledge, a thread connecting sites like Easter Island's Moai to India's floating bridge of Rama. Even the stones themselves seem to resist categorization. Some are calendars, some tombs, some machines we no longer understand. But perhaps their greatest power is how they dissolve the boundaries between myth and science. The same London hammer that geologists dismiss as a sedimentary fluke is revered by others as proof of time travelers or pre-flood civilizations. Georgia's Guidestones, with their chilling commandments for a post-apocalyptic age, were either a billionaire's manifesto or a warning etched by something far stranger. These stones don't just defy explanation, they invite us to reimagine the past, to consider that history might be wilder, weirder, and more wondrous than any textbook allows. So what do you think? Are these monuments the work of human ingenuity stretched to its limits, or could they be evidence of something beyond our current grasp? Drop your theories below. Every legend, every wild hypothesis, every midnight rabbit hole dive belongs here. And if you're hungry for more enigmas, hit subscribe. From underwater cities to artifacts that shouldn't exist, we're just getting started. The past is waiting, and it's got plenty more.